Welcome to Dead Time with your host, Holly Faust. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Dead Time Tales. Tonight, we have joining us a Coast Paranormal members, Courtney Knight and Micah Watkins. Courtney and Micah met working for the same company as storytellers. Courtney's been investigating for over 10 years, and she's worked with Fox Nation and Expedition X, while Micah has been investigating for over 20, and he's worked with Portals to Hell, Expedition X, the Weather Channel, and more. Together, they created their own business and they host investigations at the Historic Savannah Theatre nightly. Besides their investigations, they also work with the Ghost Brothers every year, helping with their Savannah takeover. The Historic Savannah Theatre was built in about 1818 by Alexander Telfair, and it's the longest continually operating theater in the U.S. with over 200 years in operation. So, guys, thank you so much for coming on and welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. We appreciate you inviting us.
Yeah, I love having people on, especially when they work at locations, because I think there are, there's a lot of well-known locations out there, but there's also a lot of unknown locations that a lot of investigators don't realize that are out there. So I always love to highlight locations because I kind of do a combination of investigating. I help families, but I also love historical places because I'm a huge history buff. And as a psychic, I think it's my job to kind of tell the stories of the people that are in these locations.
Absolutely. Sorry, we got a dog
hey, life happens. That's the thing. Like I keep my show like it's life. I have 2 dogs. Mine was barking while my intro was going off. So.
Well, yes, thanks for having us. And sorry about that. We got a little distracted.
No, that's fine.
We started doing this. I started doing that building about four and a half years ago, something like that. And Courtney came on about a year and a half ago, and we've been doing this building every single night. The Historic Savannah Theatre is somewhere that's super special to us. It's near and dear to our heart. We feel like it's home. And the folks that run the place, Mike and Matt, not only act and do stuff in their shows there because it still is a continually active theater. We do live shows on a weekly basis. So with them being super cool with us and kind of being like family nowadays, they allow us to kind of do a takeover every single night from 10:30 to 1:30 in the morning. And typically we go to about 2:00, and we bring people into the building. We teach them about equipment. So if you have no clue what's going on with equipment, or you have no clue, if you've never even seen a ghost hunting show, what we're there to do is to
it actually happens more than you think.
Yeah,
I am tech dumb.
Yeah.
I'm an old school investigator. Like I started investigating in the 90s.
Yeah.
So for us, we use string, we use the old fashioned, tape recorders, we use cameras. So
and that's part of the explanation is, with all the fun gadgetry that we use nowadays, there was somewhere where we came from. We were spiritual. A lot of us are, and a lot of us were before Catholicism or Christianity. And there's a lot of stuff that can be used. I mean, there's simple stuff, candles, spirit boards, divination tools, scrying mirrors, which we also bring on our tours. We also have compasses. We also divining rods, things like that. We bring all that stuff to the table along with all the gadgetry. And we try to teach you in a quick manner, because of course we have people that go, "Oh, you're talking too much," and
right.
We want to get investigating. So we do a run through real fast of all the cool equipment that we have. And then we take you on a crash course through the history of the building. Of course, if I had to sit there and tell you all the history of the building, we're going to sit there for 5 hours. But I try to go through a crash course and kind of go through it quickly. And then we load you up with the ghost hunting equipment. We actually give every group there that comes in, whether you're 2, 4, 6, 8, whatever the group size is. We have 8K night vision cameras for you. We load you up with digital voice recorders, K2 meters. And then we have a table on the stage where if you want to use the divination tools or any type of the old school tools, we have that on the table ready for you to go.
I think that's awesome, because I remember Years ago when I went to Gettysburg with my former team, and I am sitting out in the middle of the battlefield with a compass.
Yeah.
And people are staring at me like I have 6 heads, and I'm like, "Have you never used a compass for a no."
No, dowsing rods. I always thought were kind of hocus pocus, right? I mean, we all have our thoughts about this stuff. I grew up in a house that was haunted in the 90s and the 80s, and I was kind of ghost hunting from a young age. To be honest with you, I'd set traps and weird things in the house to see if see if the spirit in the house would actually trip them and do things. And so, I mean, yes, these tools are, to me, are kind of necessities. I mean, there's a lot of people that do come in that they've always wanted to use a spirit board and they didn't know how to correctly, or they wanted to use divination rods and stuff like that. And I always thought they were hocus pocus until a lady at the Bell Witch Cave.
Mhm.
I actually went there just as just as a tourist, kind of. I just signed up for their normal tour and ended up meeting a group of guys that had came and taken our tour a few days earlier, which was super strange. But there was like 8 of them. They showed up and they were just like, "What's up?" And I was like, "What the heck?" Anywho's we're up on top of this hill because Bella Witch Caves has a few different areas that you can explore and stuff like that, and it's really cool. I really love the place. And up on top of this hill, they had an old Native American burial ground. And she says, "Have you ever used divination tool or like a dowsing rods?" And I was like, "No, I just think it's kind of hocus pocus." And she goes, "Well, all that stuff that you're using right there is all hocus pocus too." And I was like, "Yeah, well, teach me how to use them." And she taught me how to use them, and I swear now I don't go anywhere in an investigation without them.
I am the same way for the longest time. I actually got my first pair of dowsing rods from Mark Nesbitt in Gettysburg. He wrote all the Ghosts of Gettysburg books. And I used to think that too. I'm like, anybody can make the. And then when I seen how they actually work, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. And it
Yeah,
became one of my favorite tools. Like I use a pendulum, but I have mine set up with a stand and a board.
yeah,
I love that you work with people, with a spirit board, being someone like I'm an interfaith minister, but I'm also a witch
yeah.
in trade. And I always get into the argument with people when they say, well, spirit boards are evil. I said, but a spirit board is no different than using a recorder, than using dowsing rods, than using you're still trying to
You're,
communicate with something.
yeah, you're still trying to be a conduit or a middleman for
Right.
between us and them,
Exactly.
whoever them is, right? And really, essentially, and I always tell people because they always ask me, they always ask me like life changing questions. Well, why do you think some people stay and some people go? And it's like, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. I have no clue.
That's what we're trying to figure out. I mean, I know for me,
Yeah.
like, I was like you, I grew up in a house that was built, like, in the 1800s, and it was actually a meeting hall
Yeah.
for the KKK.
Oh, wow.
So, there was all kinds of stuff
Kinds of
going on in that
that,
place.
hatred and a lot of energy inside of a building and
Oh,
walls
and
like
it
that.
it had secret passages from the attic,
Yeah.
like, our attic was gigantic, and this was a three-family apartment complex.
Mhm.
The attic stretched across all 3 floors, and the entrance just happened to be in our apartment.
Yeah.
And all these secret passageways that would lead to different areas of the house from the attic. And like my dad, who is, first generation, he was born on a boat from Ireland,
Mhm.
would sleep on a certain side of the bed that would face that attic door. And he would wake up screaming in sweat, swearing they were coming out of the attic after him. He was an Irish Catholic. So like anybody that looks really deep into the history of the KKK, no, they just weren't after people of color. They also didn't like people who weren't born again Christians.
Yeah.
And, so growing up as a kid, that's what I experienced from a very young age. We had a woman that jumped out of the attic window from the hall and committed suicide. My parents' closet had no electricity in it, and it would just start glowing in the middle of the night to the point the kids across the street would see it and ask my brother and sister what my parents were doing in the middle of the night. So, like, I had all the experiences from a young age, but then I also started having psychic experiences. And
Yeah.
that kind of was looked on very tabooly in my family.
Mhm.
Like my indigenous grandmother was all like, kind of okay with it. She kind of knew what was going on, but my mother had been assimilated by being in residential school. So she was very Catholic, as was my dad, and they would all be like, "Oh, you're the demons are in you." So it wasn't until like for me my search started was because my best friend committed suicide, and people told me he couldn't go to heaven because he was gay and because he committed suicide, and I'm like, that doesn't sound right. And that's how my whole journey into becoming a paranormal investigator started. I knew about it because I grew up a couple towns away from the Smurl hunting in Pittston, PA.
Mhm.
So I've seen on my local news as a little kid Ed and Lorraine Morin
Yeah.
talking about the preternatural and the supernatural, and I'm like, so there are people out there that actually know this stuff exists, and I'm not crazy. And I was just a little kid, and I knew at that point that someday was going to be me. I don't know how. You could call it premonition or however, but then when my best friend, passed away, I was bound and determined to figure out where he went, or not where he went, but and I've had connection with him through the years. Thankfully, he's still with me, and he's a trickster. He loves to torment my kids and their friends. So he's the same in life because he was the same way.
Still being a friend.
Yeah, he's still the same person he was. Like, I mean, I remember, when I got my cycle in high school, he literally wallpapered my locker with pads and tampons. And he's still that, like, before Photoshop came out, he was taking pictures from Playboy and, photocopying them with girls from our classes, pictures on them. So, he predated Photoshop. But that's just the person he was. He was always, and that's why I think his death shocked us so much. Because you never expect someone that loves life and loves to have fun so much, but it was because of no one would accept him for who he truly was.
Yeah. Well, and then the thing is we know it's one time. We know it's one time around here. And it sucks when somebody around us is close is gone. I mean, it's of course we want to find it out. Of course we want to know. Like I always tell people, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. I've never died and came back. So I don't know what it's like, and I don't know those hard questions. I don't know why these things are still here. I don't know why we hear a 10-year-old's voice in the staircase, at night. I don't know why. I don't know what it is, but that's been my search since I was 7 years old.
Exactly. Like,
what is this stuff? And so that's what's really fueled, essentially my passion for doing this stuff. And I love that people come in and they don't know what's going on with the equipment. They don't know the history of the theater, and I'm able to explain it, and I'm able to help them seriously rationalize, like, hey, this is what we're doing, and it's not what you see on television all the time.
Exactly. It's boring.
Yeah, it's boring. I told one lady, she goes, well, I don't want to sit here anymore. And I said, well, then go to another area. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with getting up and just moving, And I said, but you got to understand that we've paid money to go to locations and maybe 3 in a weekend and come home and go through our evidence and realize that we didn't catch a whole lot.
I went to Eastern State. Now that is supposed to be such a hot spot. And that's that at the time when they allowed investigations, it was expensive.
Yeah.
And we went there and came back with absolutely nothing. I literally will tell people, Eastern State sucked for me.
Yeah, and so now, it's hard telling.
You could go back though and experience something.
Well, they don't let investigators in there anymore. Okay. It got ruined, but I don't know who ruined it. But because I do know, like, because I'm friends with Katrina from that. She was on Portals to Hell, so we knew each other because of a former team we had been a part of. And I know they were there with Michelle Belanger, who's also was one of my mentors. Mm-hmm. So I know that they did that for the show. So, but I don't know if they stopped it, before the show or after that they filmed that episode. But yeah, I don't know what happened, but they stopped investigations there overnight.
And see, and that's what we're trying to like prevent. Like I always tell people, and between Courtney and myself, is what we want to do is we just want to create more investigators.
Right.
At the end of the night, is I hope you caught the bug, because when you go to Eastern State Penitentiary, or you go to Waverly Hills, or you go to these places and you do it respectfully, it allows us to all be able to go there.
Exactly. Like
Right.
I hate prisons, but for whatever reason, I keep getting called back to the West Virginia State Pen. I think
Yeah.
I've investigated 5 or 6 times, and I hate
Moundsville?
prisons.
Is that Moundsville?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think for me,
Awesome. This is
it's
fun.
yeah, and I think for me, I keep getting called back because of the tie-in to the indigenous tribes with the mound. Because literally, you go up to the top of that mound and you look
Yeah.
right down into the front of the prison.
Oh, and they're right across the street from each other. I did not
Right.
know that until I
Oh,
got there.
yeah,
I was
they're
like,
literally
wait,
and,
what?
like, they claim that they got everything out of that mound, but anyone who knows anything about death, dying, and the decay process, if there were things that have been there long enough, they've turned back into earth. So you did not get everything
No, you
out of
didn't.
there. You are
No, you
still
didn't.
standing on the grave of indigenous
Well, and
people because
you can't take the energy.
no, and that
You
energy
can't.
is gonna be there.
I mean, if we kind of believe as ghost hunters and people that investigate this stuff and people that study this stuff, if we kind of believe in the stone tape theory, uh, that whole theory is energy is recorded into the materials around us. So those
Right.
people that dug that dirt, there's their energy, their blood, sweat, and tears put into that dirt to cover that mound. And who knows what was put in there, because we have no clue that somebody might have put a scarf or a handkerchief or something, something they would have wore around their neck, or a headdress or something of that sort was actually buried in that dirt around it.
And they do show you. I don't know if you've ever been into the museum in Moundsville, but they will show you like layers of the mound when they were
Yeah.
excavating it and the things that they found within each of those layers. And
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, well, yeah, but you can't bone
Yeah.
decays to dust.
Yeah.
So there's no way you got all of those people because of how
Yeah.
far back they've dated some of the
And it
items.
sounds gross, but we seep into the earth. I
Exactly.
mean,
And back
we
in the
literally
day,
go back into the earth.
yeah. And back in the day, there were no, vaults. There were no caskets. They wrapped their people in cloth and into the ground they went.
Yep.
And I know I live in the part of PA I live along the Susquehanna River. And our area, it was very much Susquehannock and Lenape people all along the river. Like we have an area here called the Bloody Creek, where a few colonial soldiers were actually claimed to be killed by indigenous people along the creek. Now, I have debunked this because the local people will swear that that creek flows red from the blood of these colonialists, but I've debunked it because it's red clay under the under the creek. So, of course, at certain times of the year, it's going to flow red.
Yeah.
But they'll swear, and like I live not far from Centralia. And everybody wants to go there because of Silent Hill. And I'm like, it's not even a ghost town yet. There are still some people who live there.
There's like 3, right?
Yeah, I think there's 2 or 3 left. They fought in the courts and they can stay there until they die, and then their property goes back to the state. So I said it's a quasi ghost town. Now, if you want to go to I'm actually doing a lecture on ghost towns in my local library because I've done so much research on it. I was obsessed with Centralia. This became a ghost town, like a quasi ghost town in my lifetime. I remember being a kid in the 80s and watching the people leaving, being bought out by the government. So I'm fascinated, but we do have one 30 minutes in the opposite direction called Elvira, and it reminds me of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, where they have the dynamite mounds where they
TNT.
and that's exactly what they did there.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
That's
and
cool.
I know you guys have some amazing haunted places in Savannah.
We do.
Yeah. So you were talking earlier.
Too many.
Yeah, we have a lot.
But for me, I went to the one cemetery. I don't even know the name of it, but I know at one point it was flooded because they have a lot of stones up against the wall, up against a brick wall.
Yeah, so
in the one part of the cemetery.
Yeah, it was called an orphan wall, and that's at Colonial Park Cemetery. So that's right in the middle of Savannah.
Yes, because we could walk to it from the Sheridan.
Yep, and it used to be 2 blocks bigger in every direction than what it is now. So we had to shrink it, and of course, Savannah is known for being built on the dead, right? So all we did was pave over it and build over it. And that orphan wall that you were just talking about, those are all misplaced stones and headstones that we have no idea where originally they came from.
Wow. See, we were told they were displaced from a flood. So
You'll hear multiple stories.
There's about 1 million stories in Savannah, and you just got to be careful of. I mean, you got to take it with a grain of salt. A lot of I can't say that every storyteller is perfect, and I'm probably not either. Right.
Well, and I don't even think it was a storyteller that we had with us. I just think it was someone that we encountered at the cemetery.
Okay, got you.
Yeah, because we were there actually with a paranormal group, and we were kind of doing our own thing, and because we had booked the Sorrel Weed House, so we were just taking people around town during the day to experience, the town itself.
Gotcha. So those stones were actually from what I understand, actually happened is when the North came in and occupied Savannah, because they really didn't have to fight for it. When the North came into Savannah, like they knew Sherman was coming, and Sherman was burning everything on his way down. We know that, and he burnt down all the train depots in Atlanta, and then he burned Macon into the ground, and then he came into town, and we pretty much we split. The South just kind of was like, oh no, here he comes. And all really Sherman had to do was tighten up Fort Pulaski a little bit, which was super easy because the North had figured out how to rifle their cannon barrels. So that took 36 hours to fall. Now Fort Pulaski was supposed to be impenetrable. It was supposed to withstand anything, and it literally fell in 36 hours. So you figure the fight for Savannah was about 36 hours. And
wasn't long at all.
It wasn't long at all. And I mean, really that was it. And then the North came in and occupied the city, and they pretty much were just hanging out throughout the city. And what ends up happening is, from what I understand, is there's some of those little mausoleums and stuff you might have seen around Colonial Park Cemetery. Well, the North was actually taking those bodies out of there, and they were staying inside of them and trying to keep warm. And so a lot of the headstones, or the head pieces, let's say, because the headstones were for people that had money.
Right.
If you had money, you had stone. Most of the time, it was head pieces, which were wood. And when it's usually your family would come and take care of the headpiece, things like that. And then when the North came in, they started burning those for firewood.
Oh wow!
Yeah, that's how big that the hatred between the two were. I mean, really, if you think about it. And being in the theater, I've been there for 4.5 years doing investigations, and really, I've just now have started really getting in and telling people the history of the theater and the way it should be told. And I think that's just been redefinement over the years of what I think is more important. And the theater itself was the start of the Civil War.
That's interesting.
A lot of people kind of look at me and they go, "What are you talking about?" And the thing is in 1861, Alexander Stephens, he was the vice president of the Confederacy, actually went to the theater and he gave a speech called the Cornerstone Address of the Confederacy. And that was actually the Declaration of Independence for the South.
Wow.
So, yes. And so you got to figure 3 weeks later, the first shots at Fort Sumter were fired. Right. So due to that speech, due to that feeling of what the South was trying to put across or come across as, when he did that speech, that's what I think sparked the whole Civil War.
I totally would agree with that. Like, I think, being as close to Gettysburg as I am, we think of like the Emancipation Proclamation and the Gettysburg Address and, the things that happened there. And, it again comes back to the stone theory, is my belief of what's happening in Gettysburg. Yes, there are intelligent hauntings. I would not argue that. But when you think of what the makeup of that town is, it's no wonder so much energy is held, like, especially in places like Devil's Den and Little Round Top. And, these places, like, these are just holding on to. And I love the fact that, you brought that up, because I think even as investigators, a lot of us are history geeks, whether we want to be or not. We just
that's why we do what we do.
Yeah, literally, we're history geeks.
A minute ago, we've gone to places and come home with nothing. So we have to find another love.
Right.
The ghosts are cool, and it's great if it happens.
They're a bonus.
But it's a bonus. To me,
Right.
it's about the architecture, the history, the
Yep.
energy that's just been expelled in locations. To me, that's what makes the experience.
Yeah, and now you have me like I always say, like I was just saying this to the other day to my kids, I really want to go to Savannah. And now it makes me want to come back even more because I don't even know if the theater there was doing paranormal tours when we were there.
Mhm.
Because I don't know who booked it for our team at the time. I don't know who planned it, but I knew we had the Sorrel Weed House and we had lectures and stuff on, hoodoo and voodoo and Santeria and the different things at the hotel. And we did classes, we did experiments. We did a lot of the Gonsfeld experiments and sending and receiving while under the Gonsfeld. And, we did a lot of that there. But for me, like, I wanna come and experience even more of it because I know since we've been there, a lot of other places have opened up to investigations. Because I think the second time they went, I didn't go. I don't know, something was going on in my family, and I know that I think they did, like, a brewery or like, some place that was like a brewery, I can't remember 100%, but I know they did that location, and I was so bummed because I was like, I mean, I love the Sorrel Weed House, don't get me wrong. I felt, down in the basement, I guess, where the slave quarters were. I just felt so much energy down there.
Mhm.
Like, I could hear the singing and the chanting and, the
Mhm.
old slave songs, and,
Mhm.
so for me, that was always fascinating, but yeah, and I wanna go to that restaurant that, like, they say has a tunnel that goes out, I think, to, like, the
The
shore.
American. Yeah.
The Pirate Cave or whatever it is, yeah.
Mhm.
I'm obsessed with those things because that's why I wanna go to Oregon, to Seattle, to go through the Shanghai tunnels.
Yeah. That's really cool. That's a cool place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, like, my goal.
So you're talking about what I believe what you're talking about is Moon River Brewing Company is probably where
Yes,
you're
that's
from.
it. I
Okay.
knew I would remember the name if I heard it.
Me and Courtney used to actually host that investigation as well.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So that's where we actually met and started was actually right there in Moon River Brewing Company. And that's when we hired Courtney and we were like, this girl is fantastic. Dopest investigator I've ever met, honestly. She's braver than I am. I'll run.
My kids are too. I'm telling you, I run.
Yeah, I
I
run.
I run.
I'm
Well,
like,
I did St. Albans Sanitarium in Radford, Virginia.
yeah.
And I got knocked like, they had this entity they call the creeper that literally crawls
Mhm.
along walls and stuff in the administrative hallway. We saw it coming at us in a grid, and I'm a sarcastic as heck person. I don't have any sense of humor, but
Yeah.
I'm very sarcastic, and I was with these 2 big guys who were, like, heavy metal, like, band guys,
Mhm.
my one and 2 of my friends, and we could see this thing coming at us in the grid, and they're like, "Oh my god, what should we do?" And I looked at them, I said, "I don't know, run." So they all did, and I stayed there, and all I remember is laying on the ground and raising my hand screaming, "I lost my exit buddy." And yeah, and I was sick for, like, the rest of the night. It was the worst experience, and but now that's why I run. When we were in Mansfield Reformatory in Ohio, we were in solitary, and I literally felt something come out of one of the cells and start coming at us, and I
Yeah.
literally flew, and you
Blew
could
out.
hear on our recording my friend going, "Stop running, stop running, stop running." Then you could hear this thing coming up behind her, and then we had found out later from the tour guide that that was actually a man in that cell that killed his cellmate and wore his skin as a costume.
Oh, that's fun. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, well, he was chasing us, man. I got out of there real quick. So yeah, I'm a
I think the
runner.
skin suit thing, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, I'm a runner. The skin suit, that sounds like Buffalo Bill.
Doesn't it though?
Yes, but it wasn't. It was just, I don't know, the guy wanted his food and he wouldn't give him his food, so he
Well,
killed
it's
him.
like
And he used him before that, he used him as a sex doll.
oh
Oh
wow.
God.
Yeah, it
Um
was pretty bad. So
so I don't know. We're like totally morbid fans. Like we're totally crime junkies and
Yep,
morbid
me too.
junkies. And but wasn't it Moundsville Penitentiary where the guy cut off the other inmate's head and was bowling with it?
He wasn't bowling with it. Like, this is a story that I guess they don't share on the tour. However, me being who I am, I walked into general population, and
Yeah.
I looked at my director and I ran out, and he's like, "What's wrong with you?" And I like, I just seen someone waltzing up and down in front of the windows with somebody's head on a stick.
Okay, that's yeah.
And the tour guide said, "Where did you hear that?" I
Hear
said, "I
that?
didn't hear it. I
Yeah,
saw it." And he said, "We never share that with people." And he shared the story about how during one of the riots, there was this guy that they deemed a narc,
yep,
and
yeah, yeah,
they
yeah, yeah.
during the riot, they decapitated him, put his head
Uh,
on a stick, and marched
we're
it
marching it
in
around. That's
front of the
right. Okay.
windows to show the town what
Yeah,
they could do.
yeah,
And the guy, like the tour guide was like flabbergasted that and I'm like, "That's what I saw. I saw
yeah,
somebody's head on a stick."
yeah, yeah,
And that was like the last time. Like, I go there a lot, but I don't go into the cell blocks, because
yeah.
the only other time I did, I was walking over in protective custody, rounded a corner, and next thing I knew, I was flat on the floor, and I just felt like I was burning everywhere, like someone was continuously stabbing me, and I found out that was red cell and how
Mm,
he was killed. And
yeah,
I'm like, "Oh, gee, thanks people for telling me."
yeah, yeah,
And so I don't go near there, and I stay away from the sugar shack.
yeah,
So most of the time you can find me at West. I'm obsessed with it, but you can find me walking the hall between the cell blocks.
yeah,
I will sit in the area where the tables are outside protective custody, and
yeah.
I will also go out in the backyard, because I've actually had watched, like, to the point that I ran to get the tour guide, because I thought some of the people in our group had gotten up into the guard towers,
Mhm.
and he said there's absolutely no way for anybody to get up there, because
Yeah,
they're nailed from the inside and out. But I literally saw them walking around in the towers, and I wasn't the only
yeah,
one that saw it.
that's
So,
true.
yeah, so I do a lot outside of the cell blocks, but I don't go in.
Yeah,
I've learned to stay out, because I just, being a psychic and a medium, I've even had things like jump me and talk through me,
yeah,
and that's not fun.
yeah, yeah. Well, red cell that's a heavy cell. I had fun in there.
And that's what everybody says that they, and I'm like, "Well, I guess it's because, like, being a psychic, I'm very empathetic."
Yeah.
And I did homes around here where my friends thought I had appendicitis, and every time they took me out of the house, I was okay. But then the
Hmm.
minute I'd go back in the house, I would be doubled over, and then finding out, like, decades before, the people who lived on that property died from dysentery.
Yeah.
So, like, I've experienced the pains of their death.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I try not to, but it's very hard at times not to experience that crap.
Well, and I always tell people too, like even with all the equipment that we have and all the divination tools and stuff like that, like the best tool is yourself.
Exactly. Like, I get laughed at by a lot of investigators that are all techie
Hmm.
when they're like, "Well, what do you use?" I'm like, "Me?
Yeah. We use our
Me?"
roommate, Julia. She's sensitive. We bring her,
Yeah, I'm like, "I use me, a
Yeah.
notebook, a compass." Although I did from Lauren Helkerson, I have a crystal pod I'm
Hmm.
absolutely obsessed with. Like, it's purple, and it's amethyst and ametrine, and it has the little blessed bee underneath, and
Hmm.
it's my thing. It's
Yeah.
shiny, and
Hmm.
it lights up purple. It's a
Hmm.
REM pod, but it's a crystal pod.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
has that added benefit. And then I also have her seer, which is, I guess, reads static. I'm
Yeah.
not I need to take her classes, because I love her theory. Like, you have to know how it works to know how it works, or something like
Yeah.
that. And and now has another one that works on, I think, microwave frequencies. She's an engineer.
Wow.
So, it's just fascinating how these things that she builds. and I became obsessed, and that's like my equipment. And what else do I have? I have something else too. I can't remember what it's called,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
oh, it's Spirit Box. I
Yeah.
got an SB, whatever it is, the newer one,
Mhm.
and I love that.
Yeah.
I we have good results with it in Gettysburg. But yeah,
Yeah.
other than that, like before I got those couple of pieces of equipment, like I just used me
Mhm.
and my pendulum and my compass and a
Mhm.
recorder.
Yeah.
Like when I was first trained, it was like have a notebook, have a recorder, and have your camera.
That's it. That's the original.
It's my
Yeah,
generation who brought in all this
Yeah, that's.
fancy stuff.
I mean, I don't want to age myself too much, but I was born in the early '80s, and that's. I mean, ghost hunting was something that was more kind of taboo.
yep.
Yeah, you only had a few shows. I mean,
I
I'm
don't even remember any shows in the 80s. Like I was
no,
born, I'm gonna really age myself. I was born in the early 70s.
gotcha. Yeah, so there
So
was nothing.
yeah, there was
There
nothing.
was
Like I
really
said,
nothing.
I remember the stories of Amityville.
Yeah,
Because that was a big
that
deal.
was a big thing.
I think like I was only a baby when that happened, but I
Yeah,
remember hearing about it. And the Smurl haunting, which we call Pennsylvania's Amityville,
yeah. Hmm.
and other than that, we had no when I was a teenager, there was
You,
nothing out there.
like the first thing that was really out there was like unsolved mysteries, which I
Yeah,
was
that was the
really
closest thing
into.
for us was Unsolved
Yeah.
Mysteries.
And then
You know?
there was a show called Sightings for a little while. I think there were like 3 seasons. And
See,
Sightings,
I don't remember that one, but I was anti-TV for most of my life.
yeah, well, I was just trying to figure more out, like whether it was on television or it was in a library. I mean,
That was
nowadays
me.
we never go into the library because we can just find stuff online. But
I
when I was,
still go into the library.
yeah, but when I was a kid, that's all you had. You would go rent or go check out your 5 to 6 books or your limit, whatever it was for the 2 weeks. And you would read those books as quick as you could and then go turn them back in and get something else. And I was always about cryptids,
Yeah,
UFOs,
and we
ghosts.
didn't have an occult section in the library when I was a kid.
Oh, really? Yeah, ours was like
We had no occult section in our library.
ours was huge. Like, so I would just sit there and get all these books and I would read. I mean, I read about the Sorrel Weed House when I was a child. Like there was stuff that when I moved finally to Savannah from California, I go, I know all these stories. I read these for years. Like I know this place. I know where. Now it's neat to be able to be here.
Right, and for me, back in the day for me, it was all the stories from Ed and Lorraine Warren. I
Yeah.
was very lucky that I had a period of time where I actually got to learn from her.
Hmm.
And, she really helped mold me into the person I am because when I first met her, I didn't know anything about my abilities.
Yeah.
When I met Father Bob Bailey,
Yeah.
I had no clue what I did. And he looked at me and he asked me a question. And I'm like, well, you should know this. You're the priest. And he
Yeah.
looked at me and he said, but honey, you're an empath. And I'm like, a what?
Yeah.
And, that's where my journey really began, like to understand what it was. Like, I always thought I was like crazy.
Yeah.
Now, even to the point that I had myself committed to a psychiatric institution because I was hearing voices.
Hmm. Yeah.
Now I know better because I was on every psychotropic med under the sun and none
Yeah.
of them stopped the voices.
Yeah.
I
Well.
just embrace it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what happened. Like I met Michelle
You know.
Ballinger and I learned, when I met Michelle, I learned to embrace. I used to go out to her conferences and I learned to embrace
Hmm.
who I am. And then, I actually just wrote a book about it with my kids that have autism and
Yeah.
their psychic gifts. And
Well, it's kind of comes back to that thing about the time and the way that we were raised. I mean, you didn't talk about it. You didn't. Nobody. There was nobody there really. And I know it sounds so cliche about how we grew up and the time we grew up in, but it was more like don't talk about it. And then your parents never really positively supported
oh
that.
no, like you had stuff. I remember when my grandmother died. I
Yeah.
was literally up in my bedroom, and it happened with both of my grandparents, the same experience. So up in my bedroom with my best friend, we were playing dolls, my radio was on, and through my radio, I heard somebody like, my grandmother's voice telling me goodbye and someone telling me she died through my radio.
Yeah.
And then a few minutes later, the phone rang. When the phone rang, I turned off my radio, started picking everything up, and my friend looked at me and said, "What's wrong with you?" And I said, "You have to go home now. My grandmother's dead."
Yeah.
And then my mother came up and I said, "Grandma's dead." And she's like, "Well, how did you know?" And I said, "My radio told me." And she said, "You're crazy." And, I had the same exact experience when my grandfather died. Like, I used to tell people, the radio always told me, like, my best friend was in a car accident in high school.
Yeah.
And I heard it through my radio. We were at
Mhm.
a school dance and I heard it through the radio that he was dead. And people thought I was crazy. And then we found out it was true. And then they thought I was really crazy. So like that's how I spent most of my life, like being the outcast and the weirdo because I had these things happen to me and it just pushed me more and more to find out why.
Yeah, and that's absolutely. I'm the same way. I honestly, it would, I had to. Well, okay. So when growing up in the house that I grew up in, my mom collected antiques, and this is where my first beginning of bringing stuff into a home could really change things.
Right?
And now my personal opinion is that spirits are like the noun in an English language, right? They can haunt a person, a place, or a thing. And
Exactly.
and so when she started bringing stuff in, that's when stuff started going crazy. And it really took me and my brother, to be honest with you, because me and my brother were experiencing it. And then we were telling my parents, "Hey, this is what's going on." And my dad's like, "Oh, you kids are crazy. Like, there's nothing here. You're out of your minds." And my mom was just scared to death of it. She was just kind of like, "I don't want to hear it. I don't want it to touch me. I don't want to see it. I don't want to talk about it." Like, we really had it. And then everybody kind of got on the same page and was like, "Oh, shoot, there's really something in this house." And my dad had an experience one night by himself in the house. And I remember the next day, him telling me, he's like, and it was one of the only times my father ever really apologized to me. But he goes, "I'm sorry. I believe you now." And I was like,
Yeah.
"You experienced something?" And he's like, "Yeah, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah." It made me drop my
Yeah.
milk. And I was
Oh,
like,
my mom has gotten now. My mom's 80. Well,
"Yeah.
81. So she's gotten a little bit better with accepting things as she does ask me questions and she really doesn't tell me I'm crazy anymore. But that was most of my even like as I got into adulthood, got married and had kids, and I would be going on, these trips with my former team. We traveled all over the country.
Yeah.
And, she'd be saying, "I can't believe you're going to do that." Blah, 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 blah. Then my dad died.
Yeah.
And then she was just like, "By any chance?" And I said, out of all of the people in my life who have gone, he is the only person that has never come back to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said, "It upsets me because, I've experienced it with my brother. I've experienced it with my best friend. One of my other best friends, I've experienced being able to like see her. But like my dad was like the one person I thought for sure."
Me
And I
too.
said, "Well, he was such a good person. He probably got to wherever he was going and he just didn't want to come back."
Yeah. Well, that's me too. I've told many of people that. That's why we look at each other, is because my dad's probably the only person that I really haven't had an experience with.
Yeah.
And I
My
waited.
friends have.
Huh?
My friends had an experience where we were using the old shack hack. That's
Yeah.
really dating myself in
Yeah.
Gettysburg. And my friends heard his voice
Yeah.
through the shack hack and like literally looked at me and said, "That was your dad." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? I didn't hear nothing."
The
And
only
so it wasn't meant for me.
the only time I really had any experience with my dad, after his passing, he died of pancreatic cancer, and I was probably 26, 27, something like that. And so we used to have a store downtown Savannah, right across the street from Miss Paula Dean's restaurant, and we used to have a little metaphysical store down there, and we used to have psychic readers in there. We have a guy named Brian Byers. Shout out to Brian Byers.
Savannah Psychic.
And Jen Byers, and they both worked in there. And I walked in the store one day, and he basically he goes, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa," and I was like, "What?" And he goes, "There's a big man behind you, and he's just covered in animals."
Oh, wow.
And I was like, "Wait, what?" And he goes, "He's just covered in animals, dude, like Ace Ventura. Like he has parrots and he has dogs and cats and he's holding a lizard and he's got just all this weird stuff all over him." And I was like, Oh, okay. I go, can you ask him what his name is? And he goes, he just tells me this. And I go, what? And he goes, yeah, he just goes like this. Tell him this. And I go, oh my God. And I mean, it's giving me goosebumps right now. But my dad, his nickname was Otis.
Oh,
And
wow.
so when me and my friends were sitting back, hanging out when we were young and partying and whatnot, he'd come outside and he's like, what's up? It's Big O Dog. And he would always do this. He would always do Big O Dog, right? And so he would walk out and say that. And it just, so we all called him Big O Dog. And so he goes, when he did that, I was like, shut up. Just shut up. And he's
That
cutting animals, which a lot of people don't know that when I grew up, my house was a zoo. We had a ringneck parrot, we had a cockatiel, we had an iguana that lived in the house named Drac, we had dogs, we had cats. I mean, you name it. And when he says, he walked in with all these animals, and it was like, yeah, because after he died, we found all of his animals frozen with him, and we were supposed to cremate his animals with him.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so to hear that was really like one of those things like, oh shit, he's here. So my thing is I haven't had an experience where he's broke through and he's showed me himself, or he's contacted me, or maybe I haven't listened well enough. But I know for a fact that he's there
Yeah.
because I've had him tell me, I've had
Yeah.
Brian tell me that.
And I know with me, my grandmother, I was very close to my dad's mom. And, she was a tiny 4'11" Irish woman. Well, she was actually Scottish. Her maiden name was Bruce.
Mhm.
And I'd always hear her brogue for every little thing. Like I thought until I was about 4 or 5, my name was Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. Because she never she never called me anything else. It was always Jesus, Mary, and
There you
Joseph.
go. Yeah.
You know? So
Mine
that's what
was
I thought
little
my name
shit
was.
or something like that. Yeah. You little
Well,
shit.
and but she wore, it wasn't even wore, she used this soap called Cashmere Bouquet. They don't even make it anymore. But she always smelled like that soap.
Yeah.
And I know she's around because I can smell it.
Mm-hmm.
I can, and my grandfather, whenever he's around, I smell Jameson
Yeah.
because he was a drunk.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and that was his choice, either that or vodka.
Yeah.
But with her, I mean, I remember that soap, I don't even think it's been made since like the 80s. But I took my son to Lancaster, PA, and oh, there's the puppy. And we went to see Thomas the Tank Engine in Lancaster, well, in Strasbourg. And the hotel we were staying at was a hotel that was made with all train cars.
Oh, neat.
And I opened up the drawer in the hotel, and there was a tiny bar of Cashmere Bouquet.
Oh wow.
That's
And
cool.
I was just like, "Oh, my grandmother was here." And my
Yeah.
husband's like, "You're nuts." And I'm
No,
like, "But
coincidences aren't coincidences.
nope." And I totally believe in synchronicity.
Oh yeah.
It's something, I've been lucky enough to spend time at the Rhine Institute, and
Mm-hmm.
I took classes with the Coastler Institute from the University of Edinburgh. So,
Yeah.
I totally believe in those psi or synchronistic moments. And,
Yeah.
there was something that I don't think anything is random.
No.
No.
I think everything happens the way it's supposed to, even though we may not like it. But yeah, and the longer and longer I've been involved in the paranormal, the more I've realized this more and more.
Yeah.
Easy to accept.
It's all happening for a reason. I mean, I don't really. I mean, my thing is, it doesn't really matter if you're religious or not. I mean, we all kind of have this feeling as an accumulative. And I think in the past, like 10 to 20 years, we've kind of become more spiritual.
Yep.
Even people that are in church are kind of realizing, like, oh, like I feel these things. I know these things are here. I know what's going on. Like, even those people, even the Bible thumping folks that come to our our tours or whatnot, and they're like, yeah, this is all bad. This is all bad. And listen, like, you got to
I tell
understand.
them all, but y'all talk to the Holy Ghost.
Absolutely. And the thing is it doesn't mean that we're not. I'm not really religious, but I do believe in a higher power, and I do believe that in a God, and we're on the same page. And the thing
Yeah.
is that and people really, there's no difference or division there, and really these things can be experienced by everybody. It's not just the religious folks or people that don't believe in religion. When we can all sit in a room and experience something super neat, where we were
Right.
like, did you hear that? And they go, yeah, I heard that. That was my name. And I'm, yeah, how did they know your name? I don't know.
Oh,
Well, here
like,
we
and
go.
I always found that to be interesting because,
Mhm,
like, I love it. I have a friend who's very much atheist and
mhm,
doesn't and believes all of this stuff is like, craziness. And I
yep,
remember, being on an investigation with him and he experienced something and he just, oh my God, I can't believe it. And then after that, he became spiritual.
yeah.
And, I had,
It
yeah,
has changed people. I mean,
and I had a guy, we were at Malvern Manor out in Iowa
mhm,
and we were doing a seance in the attic, and this was like a big, 6 foot something, 200 some pound cop
yeah,
that had no belief in anything, just
yeah,
came with his wife because he wanted to prove her wrong,
yeah.
and got lifted up and
We get
pulled
that every
back
week.
into a corner and
Yeah,
like he flipped. Like if you had like I was getting messages from that poor guy. We drove to Iowa all the way home. Like we were like driving home from Iowa and it took us 2 days to get there.
yeah,
And he's literally messaging me the whole time because he's still freaking out over the
yeah,
fact that he got lifted up
That's crazy.
off of his butt and pulled back into a corner. And like everybody that was watching it on the video literally were like freaking out when they saw it happen. And here I am thinking he was just pulling away from me
yeah.
when all of, I missed it all. I didn't get to see it. I was bumming. I'm like, man, I would have liked to see that big guy get pulled.
Yeah. That takes a lot of energy. I'm a big boy.
Yeah.
I'm a big boy, and I always tell people on the tours, I'm like, if you see me levitate,
And
run.
that's what I tell people, like, when I was over 300 pounds when I got knocked on my
Yeah,
behind. I'm like, something that's knocking down a 300 plus pound person is
it's
gotta
got
have
something behind
energy
it.
behind it.
Hmm.
And, and like, yeah, I'm like, I'm over it.
And we are actually in August 29th to the 31st. We are doing what we're calling the Macabre Con. It's a
Oh,
symposium. Excuse me. It's a symposium, and it's going to be a 3 day paranormal event, like a paracon. And what we're doing is what we want to do is we want to bring those type of people, like we were just speaking about, like people of all different walks of life and all different beliefs, and actually bring them into one location. So we all talk about para-unity. It's been talked about, I mean, gosh, since the
as
early,
long as I can remember.
yeah, early 2000s when I started, doing this, and it's always been a thing. Every interview I've ever had, or we've talked on podcasts and stuff, everybody talks about para-unity, but it's something that's far and few between. You A lot of paranormal groups are very possessive over locations, and very they don't want to talk to other groups or try to figure out what's going on. It's just everybody wants to ghost hunt and find the craziest piece of evidence that we can find. And my thing is I want to talk about it.
I agree.
I want to talk about
100%.
it. I want to get the PhD in parapsychology from the UK. I want to bring him over here, the guy that actually teaches parapsychology in the UK.
I can't even remember who's doing that now because I know for the longest time it was Caroline Watts. She's actually one of the ones that wrote the introduction to parapsychology, that the course
Mhm.
that I took.
Yeah,
Well, we
and
have two coming.
we have two folks from the
Three.
UK, three folks,
Yeah.
yeah, from the UK that'll be
That
coming. We
is
have
pretty awesome.
one that he's our friend, that he's a parapsychologist, and two of his friends, or two of his uh, people that he knows from the UK that basically teach at the schools and stuff like this. We're bringing them in, and we're kind of bypass all the TV stuff. All right, so
I love that because I have been to so many paracons where I was involved with the parrot. I wasn't on a
mhm,
show, but I worked for someone who was.
yeah,
Yes.
And I am tired of the para entertainment aspect of it because it is so different than what we do.
it's played
And,
out nowadays. I'll be honest
and
with
it's
you.
greatly misrepresented. You know,
It is.
like,
It
it's
really
not
is.
only misrepresented in who's doing it, but the people that
Mhm.
are represented on these shows, you know, like, it's to me, they wanna keep their crap close to them. Like, when I was with my former team, I didn't realize how insular we were until, like, 4 or 5 years ago, like, when I left.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, this gigantic world of the paranormal became open to me. I
Opens
mean,
up.
I took a few years off to heal, and also because of COVID, because I'm immune suppressed,
Mhm.
so I didn't do a lot. I did go out a couple of times with friends of mine. We investigated places like Wildwood, West Virginia, you know, the Bel Air House, places like that. But I think we did the Bel Air pre-COVID. But like afterwards, we did like Wildwood, we did Mansfield, we did a couple places up in New York. Um, you know, I didn't realize though until I got away from it all and started really branching out, the joining the team I'm a current member. Well, I'm a mentor and an advisor for, a researcher for, starting my own team and started going out to a lot of these events. I didn't realize how insular I was
Yeah.
with my former team because we kept things like, and there was enough drama there
Yeah.
that
You.
we
Well,
kept things close.
that's it. That you just said it. You just said the drama,
Yeah.
right? And it's the thing is there shouldn't be.
Oh, and
It's
I see it every day on my Facebook, man, and I
it's
just stay out of
totally,
it because I tell people,
totally.
"I'm Switzerland. I
Yeah.
am Switzerland. If you are good to me, I will be good to you.
That's
If
it.
you're a dick to me, I'll be a dick to you, and if
That's
you
it.
really piss me off, I'm gonna throw something your way and give
Yeah.
karma a boost."
Let's go.
Because
I mean,
I'm like, "It's
we're the same.
on."
We have the same thing going on here where we have somebody in the community that is just completely a parabully.
Yeah, and I
And
see it all the time, and it's like and it's happening so much, it breaks
mhm,
my heart because
yeah,
literally there are enough locations,
yeah.
there are enough people
Enough.
out there.
Everybody.
And we have 365 nights of the year to find something different every single night.
Exactly, and who cares? Like,
Who
my
cares?
thing is did you start this to make money?
Yeah, no. I mean, if you did, you were sadly mistaken.
Exactly, because how many people actually make a hit TV show? How
You,
many people actually like, especially now because the networks are steering away from paradramas.
well, that's the thing. That's what we're seeing, right? Is YouTube was a platform where we could go on, record something ourselves, edit it ourselves, and put it on. You have YouTube productions that are $1 million production an episode now.
Right.
So the thing is you literally have to have a TV crew to even put a YouTube channel together, a YouTube video together, to hit those views and to actually get the payment and to actually do stuff like that. So
Oh, yeah, it's
really,
very difficult to, like, I mean,
mhm,
I know, like, my big thing is TikTok. I'm a micro
yeah,
influencer on TikTok,
yeah,
but that took a lot of work. Like,
yeah,
the people don't even understand that for all of COVID. Yeah,
that's
all of
fair.
COVID, like, I hit, I think, 14,000 followers,
Yeah,
and but that took me getting online religiously every day
every
from
day
7 a.m. to noon and
posting
going
2 3
live.
posts a day,
Well,
doing
I would
what?
go live from 7 a.m. to noon every day,
There you go.
Monday through Friday, and then all weekend, I post a lot of, like, I call them memes cuts. I
Hmm.
find a lot of funny things and post them just to, like, because I took, like, 2 years off when I had surgery,
Yeah, so you're
and
just trying to get those people back in the
yeah,
click.
because I
And
went from,
everything.
like, 14, 15,000 down to 12.8.
Well, a lot of people don't
But
understand that TikTok and Instagram and everything that it becomes a full time job. Like
yeah,
there's
my
no
son
question
wants to
about
become a
it.
TikToker, like, he wants to
Yep,
do, like, a streamer with
yep,
Fortnite and whatnot,
and
and I
and
told him,
that's
"You don't have enough time. You
it's
got a baby, you got a wife, you got a mortgage.
you got to think
You
that you got to
you"
have a personality too because
and
nobody's going to
he's
sit there and watch
autistic.
and
He's
you because
autistic,
yeah.
and he's
So
monotonous.
and the thing is people might want to see that. People might actually
He gets
get
tons
down
of
on
views
that.
when he shares
Yeah,
Madden content, but,
yeah,
like, when he's actually, like, to talk and try to he's very monotonous, and I'm trying to
mhm,
tell him, "You have to be expressive because
yeah, yeah,
if not, people are only gonna watch to laugh at you."
yeah, yeah. And,
And
and
I
it's
said, "I'm sorry to say that, but,
yeah,
you
and it
know."
sucks, and because that's what we've become. We become if I can't get you to view me or get a job or whatever the case is, we become depressed. This is what it's become. And it's, the thing is we need to get away from all that stuff, the television stuff, the YouTube stuff. And
I agree.
we need to talk about it, right? Just like we're doing right now. We have agreements, and there might be things that, we might not see eye to eye on, but that's human.
And we're not always going to agree. We're all going to have different theories and different thought processes, but it's when we learn to accept one another for where we are and just work together.
And it's like, I worked for the Department of Corrections in California for a number of years, and there was training that we had to take every year. And they basically would tell you that in one situation, if you have 10 people watching it, you're going to get 10 different stories.
Exactly. I have a law background, and we talk about the same thing when you talk in criminal justice. When you're at the scene of a crime, every witness is going to give you a different story.
And they could be vastly different,
and they're going to believe that what they saw was fact.
It was fact, right? So the thing is when I want to sit people down. I want to talk to people with those PhDs in parapsychology, and I want the ufologists, and I want the cryptologists, and I want everybody there. And my thing is, which we're working on getting and have already secured, I do want the ghost stuff. Give me more ghost stuff.
But the paranormal encompasses cryptozoology. It encompasses research into psi. It's all of that. It's a pseudoscience that it's more than just ghost hunting.
I mean, we got an archaeologist that found a B-2 bomber off the coast of South Carolina. We've got PhDs in parapsychology. We got a PhD in infrasound. We have a PhD in energy. We have all kinds of different people that we're packing this building with and that are going to be speaking. And our main focus is to get everybody in one room. This is going to happen on the Friday night of the Paracon. Is I'm going to get everybody inside the room. We're going to have some really cool openers. We have some folks that are coming to open up the Paracon, and it's going to be a fun night. And
I wish I was closer.
I wish I could give you more details, but I'm kind of.
That's okay. I'll be following along. So
yeah, I got to do this for a second, but we're going to have some cool openers and have some fun stuff happening. We're going to be feeding everybody that night, and I want to shut the doors. I want to lock the front doors, right? Once we get everybody in there and we're all in there and secure, I want to open up a forum. I want to open a forum and go, okay, here we are. We're all here. That we got ufologists right here. These guys do a UFO podcast. These guys are cryptologists. They're out hunting Bigfoot. We got the PhD in infrasound right there. We got the PhD in energy and the parapsychologist, and we have this evidence. So let's talk about it. What do we?
Everybody's gonna have a different view.
Everybody's gonna have a different view, but that's what the conversation is about. And so when we're talking about para-unity and actually getting people together to talk about what we're witnessing and what's going on, and I'm telling you, it's not just going to be evidence from ghosts. It's going to be evidence. There's going to be UFO evidence there. There's going to be Bigfoot evidence there. There's going to be ghost evidence there, and we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about it.
I love that because I know I do a cryptid festival. Well, I vend at it. And it's local to this area. And my friend is she's big into Bigfoot research. Like we actually were just talking tonight, and I was telling her my daughter was outside last night. I think it was last night or the night before. I get a text message at like 11:30. Mom, I just heard someone breathing really heavy outside. And we live in the middle of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's something breathing out there, my first thought goes to bear.
Yeah.
But then when she was explaining it, what it sounded like, she was like something like, she said it was kind of like, La Llorona, where it sounds like it's next to you, but it's not as far away, but it makes it sound. And I'm like, oh boy. And so I was telling my friend who's a big Bigfoot researcher, and she's like, I think I need to come over and sit in your backyard.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, here we go. And that's what I'm kind of trying to do with my show, my podcast, because the only people I haven't been able to get on are the ufologists. I have not gotten a UFO person yet to bite.
Well, we could
Get
probably
you.
send you a couple folks your way.
Yeah, because I'm dying to get like I've had haunted locations.
Mhm.
I do like little shorts on. I've been focusing on like true crime
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
not just true crime itself, but its connection with urban legends and the paranormal.
Yeah.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
yeah, because that's my big thing. Like
Well, that's the thing, and that's where I want to make connections in.
yeah,
So I
for
want
me,
to
that's
make
my
those
thing.
weird connections, right? So I want to, if we're playing something and somebody goes, that's actually exactly that's right up. If the ufologist stands up and he goes, this is an interdimensional being. This could be something that's literally here and we don't know it's here, right? Like I want to hear the connections. I
Yeah, and
want.
that's how
That's
I
what I
am.
want.
Like
Yeah.
I say, like we have near us, we have the story of a woman in white.
Hmm.
And, every area has them. But then as I was doing research on this mountain where this woman in white happened in the 1920s, there was
Hmm.
a young woman's body found there. She'd been killed.
Yep.
And
Yep.
then it was, and back in the 20s, paranormal stuff was not like all the rage, although that was about the
Yeah.
time spiritualism was taking hold. But
Hmm.
like people started basing claims of this story about this woman in
Yeah.
white. And I said, this is where you have the cross between a true crime, because this is a still to this day not solved murder,
Yeah.
and the paranormal, and an urban legend that
Hmm.
is like I always say worlds collide.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and talking about like spiritualism in the early 1900s, like we have a newspaper article that's up in the lobby of the theater that is from 1895. And it's basically talking about how some of the young ladies from the local choir group would come in and be chased out of the building by an entity in the dressing rooms. And
Wow.
so talking about early spiritualism is really neat. And it's, to me, it's kind of where our foundation comes from, because this is, I think, is one of, I wouldn't say it's the first time that we all really got big about it, but it's modern, right? It's a little bit
Oh
more
yeah.
modern, and then we had the big influx in the 2000s, right? So we had that big burst of, I mean, we're still going off of that,
Yeah, we're
right?
still experiencing a lot of that because
Uh,
I think that's
and
like around the time like Ghost Hunters
yeah,
and these
yeah.
shows like
Most
that,
Haunted, I remember Most Haunted being one of the first ones on the Travel Channel, from Europe or the UK,
Yeah,
and
I
they
think
came
that
on.
was one that I seen a few. I used to like to watch one out of the UK. It was Ghost Hunting With, and they
Yeah,
would pick like their boy bands. Like I was a huge fan of an Irish boy band called
yeah,
Boyzone,
yeah,
and they
yeah,
actually took them to Queen Mary's Close up in
yeah,
Scotland. And
yeah,
the one was like a devout Christian, and he was like freaking out because they took him into a building and they set up like an altar and ritual space, and he's like,
mhm,
"Ah, get me out of
yeah,
here!"
yeah,
But to me that was I watched it for the comedic value, not for the
yeah,
ghost hunting.
yeah. Exactly. Well,
Yeah.
then, and even Miss Mary Todd Lincoln,
Mhm.
after Lincoln was assassinated, I mean, that's a
It's
whole story
sad.
in itself.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I
Because
did so much research on that.
yeah, because we had Junius Booth and Edwin Booth, which are John Wilkes' brother. Was John Wilkes' brother? His name is Edwin Booth, and then their dad's name was Junius, and Junius raised those two boys to be actors, and we've had them perform in our theater. I mean, that's where
Oh,
Edwin Booth
wow.
got a big. I mean, he was
He was a star.
he was a star.
Yeah.
He was
Wow,
literally
that's
chased from the DeSoto Hotel over
About
to
2 blocks.
about 2 blocks from the DeSoto Hotel over to the theater by a mob of women that were trying to take his clothing off. They
oh,
were trying
wow.
to, yeah, that's how big of a star he was.
Wow.
So uh, we had that going on, and of course, John Wilkes Booth assassinates President Lincoln in the Ford Theater, and then Miss Mary Todd then goes on a run across the United States, and she's doing seances,
Yep.
In our theater.
which also happened in our theater because we found a newspaper article that was basically propaganda speaking against it. We are a Christian community.
Man, I need to come back to Savannah. No one and
Yes.
it's so funny because I was like I said, I was just saying this the other day. I've had the itch and now I know why.
Yeah.
Because I like I said, I fell in love with it. And, like I told you, the only other place I'd rather be in this world is Lilydale, which what is
Yeah.
that? It's a spiritualism community. It was founded by the Fox sisters.
Yeah. Well,
So and I love it there.
there's another place in Florida. It's called Casadega.
Casadega. Yep.
Mhm.
That's like
We're
part
just
of the spiritualist church.
Yeah, we were just there, and very interesting little city. We took a big walk around the town, and we walked up to the museum, and the lady says, she goes, "Well, I saw you kids over there hanging out in the store. Figured you might come over here," and we're just like, "Whoa!"
Well, and I don't know if they're like Lilydale, because like I know when you go to Lilydale, that's a gated community.
Oh, is it really? No,
You
this is
have
wide
to pay.
open.
Oh no, you have to pay to get into Lilydale, into the town.
Oh,
It's like they
really?
charge for parking. And from what I was told, years ago when we were looking into it, you have to buy your home in cash. They don't do mortgages unless it's previously agreed upon with the previous owner if they want to allow you to pay them. And you have to be a part of the church
Yeah.
Oh wow.
to have a home there. And their big time, of course, is in the summers.
Mm-hmm.
I know ghost hunters actually were there. Grant and Jason were there years ago. That's the first time I went up there was when I
Yeah.
seen them.
Yeah.
And it's a town of psychics and spiritualists. They have healing services. They have they call it the stump. And it was a stage that was made out of this big tree, and it's like an area where the Fox sisters themselves used to be.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and and to me, when I'm there, I just feel so at peace, like it's where I
Yeah.
belong. And I felt the same way when I was in Savannah.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh,
I really fell in love with it, and I'm a northern girl, like, out and
well,
out.
I'm a Western kid. I'm from California. I grew up in the Central Valley of the California, right between Fresno and Bakersfield. And then I moved out to Pismo Beach when I was about 19. And then I ended up making the move out here to the South. And I'll be honest with you, I vacationed out here about 16, 17 years ago. Weirdly enough, we have a mutual friend that I investigated her house way back then. So
Wow,
I
that's
came out
pretty
here for
cool.
vacation and then actually got to investigate her house and got some crazy stuff. This is when I first noticed or thought that ghosts can actually manipulate your phones.
Mhm.
That was 16, 17 years ago. It was the first time I ever really was introduced to that in her home. And unbeknownst to us, we're all friends in a circle and we didn't even know it. But yeah, I fell in love with the city. I came out here, I saw the Spanish moss hanging from the oak trees,
I love that.
and, and I saw the forest, and I was just like, that forest is so thick you can't even see through it. And I fell in love with it. And then I fell in love with the environment at first, and then once I started learning about the deep, rich history that's actually in Savannah, you really start just pulling stuff. I mean, there's stuff that I could look online tonight and find something brand new about that theater that I've never ever thought, or about the City Hotel, which is Moon River Brewing Company.
Right.
It's actually been shut down since, so that's
Oh,
actually no
wow. That
longer.
stinks.
Yeah, about a year ago it shut down, and
And no one's taking it over.
no, because
You want it for $37 million? Go ahead.
Mm.
it's expensive. I mean,
If
it's
I
right.
had $37 million, I wouldn't be doing a podcast.
You know what I'm saying? Or you might. Maybe it would just be for funsies.
Well, it is for
Um,
funsies now. I'm not doing,
yeah, right.
I ain't making the bank doing this, let me tell you.
Yeah. Well,
I'm not
I
even
didn't either.
monetized.
I had a podcast that we did quite a few episodes. We were well into the 50s, 60s, 70 episode range, and it was never really. It was all about just really sitting down and talking. I mean,
That's how it is for me. I don't script it. I want to have conversation.
mhm.
And for me, I just, wherever this spirit moves us to go is how it's going to go. Like,
Well,
we may have one topic, but
yeah,
we're gonna, like, anybody that's watched some of them have seen, like, we start out with one topic and we end up all the way
we
over in
go
left field.
exactly, and that's the way conversation is, and that's the way it should be. And talking about Savannah, and I really do kind of want to come back to that because highlighting Savannah to me is really important. This is a city, one of the very few in the country where you can stand on steps where there were enslaved peoples that were sold.
Mm-hmm.
And across the country, we may not see it every day. And I mean, it's hard not to sometimes, racism and things like this, and the way that it wasn't too long ago. Let me tell you, we in the South, we were still segregated until 63, 64.
My people, we couldn't even practice our ceremony until the 70s.
Yeah, there you go. Right. So, I mean, you look back and you realize that the theater was the first theater in town that was actually letting people of color come see a show in the 40s.
Wow.
In the 40s, you were able to come as a person of color and see a show. So, I mean, it's not too long ago. And we have Miss Huxley Scott that performs. She's a beautiful Black woman. And I don't want to age her, but she's an older gal. And she sings on stage. And this woman sat in the segregated section of that building.
Wow.
And she sat there and watched movies with her family, with amongst other people of color. They would have to sit in the segregated section of the building. And that woman used to watch movies in that section of the building. And 30 years ago, she started performing on that stage. And since then has been inducted into the Jazz Hall of Fame. And you want to talk about
amazing.
You want to talk about history. That woman is history. Right?
Yeah, you're living history, having someone like
history here. And so talking to that woman, every time I see her, I'm just like, you know how gorgeous you are. You know how beautiful you are, like just as a human being. Like just talking to her really changes your mind. And the city does that. And so when I hear that the city is trying to limit ghost hunting tours to 10 p.m. and I hear that
And
the history tours to 10 p.m. and things like this, well, listen, not all of us go home and read history every night, except for us, right?
We do, because it's what we love.
It's what we love to do. But when you actually can grab somebody that's just taking a walking ghost tour and you can feed them a spoonful of sugar with the medicine, right? I can feed you a cool ass ghost story and then with a good piece of history that you are going to retain when you go home. I've done my job. As a storyteller, I've done my job. If I can give you a cool ass crazy story and then also give you a piece of history and knowledge and that you can take with you home and then you'll always remember, that to me is I've done my job.
Yeah, I like that, because I think that in the end, that's what we want to be doing.
That's what we want to do, right? I want you to go.
It's not just about the ghosts.
No. And that's what our tour is about every single night. And there's so much history in Savannah itself that you could walk across any street and it has a story.
I liked when we were there, we stayed at the Sheraton. I think right across the street is where I called it Little New Orleans.
Yeah.
Because it was just like we discovered that, it's just like New Orleans. There was no laws against open container.
Oh, yeah, that's the way it is.
Yeah, and we literally found adult slushies.
Where's she talking about? Is she talking about?
It was they're alcoholic slushies.
Yeah, you're talking about
I don't know, but there's a couple of them that we would just go with our cup and keep refilling along the way.
Well, she's talking about downtown. What you're talking about is downtown. It's all open container law. You can actually come to downtown Savannah and grab a drink from the bar, and as long as you
go to another one.
And I have a to-go cup. They will put you're not supposed to walk with glass or bottles or anything like that. But as long as your drink is in a to-go cup, you are allowed to drink in the city.
Yeah. And I don't even know if that hotel is still there. It was the Sheraton Hotel. And then right off to we would stand outside to smoke and we would look over that way. And there was, I think, an AME church that Sunday, the music that we heard, came out, we knew they were people of color because of the beautiful music that was coming out of that church. And then we were all lushes. So then we go find these adult slushies. And then we were set for the day.
There's Fat Tuesdays, which they do alcoholic slushies, and that's on Whitaker. And then you have Wet Willie's, which there's 2 locations in town, and
that's can go probably the one that we found too. That because I remember we just.
You remember the drink that you had?
I had one that was kind of it tasted almost like chocolate milk.
Okay, so the mudslide.
Yes, that was it. The mudslide.
Yeah. So
all I know is that another one that I got to try, and I don't handle liquor well. I'm Native and Irish. You'd think I would, but I think the Native side. Yeah, I get very rowdy, but I think the Native side of me takes over because I also get really loaded. But I know another one that I had. I guess it actually had grain alcohol in it because after I had that, I was hit. But then we found a pub.
They all do.
Yeah, well,
every drink that you get from Willie's is it's grain alcohol. So
no wonder why I was lit. But then we found a pub.
Yeah, you get a huge cup and it's a slushy, just like you get a slushy at a 7-Eleven.
Or
and
at the amusement park by our house.
the amusement park, right? And then it's full of grain alcohol. The best one to me there is called Call a Cab.
Yeah, I don't think any of us had that. We were all tasting each other's, but then we
Yeah.
found this pub that actually had real cider from the UK.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my goodness, like I said, I fell in love with the place. I definitely it's somewhere I've been wanting to come back to again and
You
again.
need
Someday
time to
I'm
come
gonna
back
win the
in
lottery.
August.
I would love to come back in August. Unfortunately, I don't know if it's in the cards this year because I have like 4 festivals in August.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
um,
So and
I book my events a year in advance.
yeah. And
So,
we're probably gonna see each other all around because that's exactly what we
yeah, if
do.
you're gonna be up in Gettysburg, I mean,
Yeah.
I'll be there. I'm not staying at the hotel.
Mhm.
I'm staying at the Colton, which is like dirt cheap because
Yeah.
I stayed at that hotel for the Warren Con and I ain't paying the price that
Yeah.
they want for
Yeah.
those.
we got
But
Airbnb.
Yeah. We usually get an Airbnb.
see, and that's what I was trying to do, but it's just me and my daughter coming up. I'm hoping to make some connections so that if I do the event again, I could do that because I know a lot of nice Airbnbs in town.
Well,
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 we have 2 other people that are supposed to be coming with us as well. And I mean, since we're all paranormal investigators,
we might as
there's
well.
several rooms available. So why
We
don't we
might.
just pitch in together and
We'll
get an
text you.
Airbnb?
We'll
Yeah,
text you.
text me for sure because I can cancel my reservation up until the day before. I
Yeah.
know I'm staying like 4 miles away
Yeah.
from the hotel. And my middle daughter's coming with me. She is not she's kind of struggles when it comes to the paranormal,
Mhm.
but she's coming to help me because I'm not good with packing up my shit and loading up the
Yeah.
thing and I can show you around, man. I know because I don't know exactly where y'all are staying, but we actually have stayed in a few Airbnbs there.
Mhm.
And one of them we actually stayed with was on the south side, the southern side of Gettysburg. And it was literally a field hospital and it was in the middle of nowhere. All it was surrounded by farmland.
Which one you're talking
Yeah.
about?
I was gonna say we stopped by there, seen it.
Yeah, it's a little there's at the end of the road that it's on, there is an actual field hospital like place that you could tour. But
Yeah.
this is like right down that road and there's like a little old cemetery that I think is Civil War era
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
this little house
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
has like 2 or 3 bedrooms. My friend and I stayed there during COVID with our kids. And
That might be
man, let me
available.
tell you
It's
that
available.
place
Yeah,
that
I wonder if
place
it's available.
that place that I don't know. I haven't seen it on Airbnb in a while. So
Oh no.
But
We'll have
yeah,
to
I
look.
mean, essentially, we would love to see everybody. I mean, we want everybody to come and experience, what it is, what we do, right? And whether you have zero experience or you've been doing this stuff for years, we just want to hang out and go
and
something with you. And
I love that. So
that's what it is. And we want to bring the paranormal community together. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I'm sure you feel it yourself too. There's times where I sit back and, I've seen myself on television and I was watching those shows when I was a kid, Unsolved Mysteries and Sightings and things like this. And I was like, I want to do that someday. And then to watch yourself on television or to see yourself and you really go, man, I hit that mark.
yeah,
Now
I
what?
still struggle seeing myself, like, even on YouTube. I
Yeah.
steered clear from ever wanting to be on like, I mean, I was a big girl. I was
Mhm.
never getting on TV.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
I'm doing so
and
much.
it's
Yeah.
like the double standard because it's okay for big guys, but us big
Yeah.
girls at the time. And for me,
Well,
like,
no,
I
I felt
still
that way.
struggle.
I felt that way my whole life. I've been a big boy
Yeah.
ever since I was 12, right? So I've always felt the same way. Ain't nobody going to put me on television. Ain't nobody going to want to hear what I have to say. And then to actually get a platform like with you and like
Oh,
even,
yeah, and I love it. That's why I like to bring in people like you guys. I don't wanna bring
yeah,
in like because someone said, "Well, why don't you bring in Taddy and Katrina's?" And, I'm
yeah,
like, "But they have their platform."
yeah,
They're still doing it,
yeah,
long after, like, all of their teammates are no longer on,
yeah,
they're still actively doing this stuff, and I love to run into them at conventions because I just love those girls. I
yeah,
investigated with, Heather Taddy in Uniontown, PA, a mansion.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
we just did it on a weekend. We would bring people in and we had her come.
yeah.
And no one came. And it was just me, her, and my friend. And we had the best time ever
Those
investigating
are like
that
the best
mansion.
times, right? Like when nobody shows up and you're just like, okay, let's do
And
this.
that's how I always was. I don't care if people show up. I still got the place for the weekend.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so like Katrina's phenomenal.
Amazing.
And let me tell you, because she was one of those that I have watched on TV since PRS, it was a PRS,
Yep.
right?
The Paranormal
Yep.
Research Society. It was
Yeah.
Paranormal
So,
State was the show.
yeah, Paranormal State. I've been watching her since then, and I feel like I've watched her grow and
Man, you
mature.
you need to stalk my Facebook because I have some old photos of her from that day, from those
Yeah.
back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, like, we used to make memes. We used to have meme contests,
Hmm.
and and I actually have one of her sitting in the office, and she's like pointing like this, and yeah, the meme I had made said, "And the demons are kept over here."
Yeah.
You know.
One, she's just, I don't know. I feel, uh, I don't know her, right? If
I
you
only
tell
know
her,
her from investigating and from
yeah,
being at events, but I know I had a kinship with her and Heather
she's
that
very, very much that way. And it's
yep,
just, she, and that's the way that I strive to be, right? So even just working with Katrina, I try to be open and thoughtful to other people's experiences. And the way that she is really, I like to call her one of the OGs.
yep, I agree with that, like,
OGs, like,
even though I have more experience, like, as an investigator, I've been doing it longer,
mhm.
I've learned so much from her.
Yeah, yeah, she's really a good person, and I love doing the show with her. I mean, she was
I
with
know
her.
I'm bumming because I was supposed to do Penhurst last year and Jack
Mhm.
was there,
Yeah,
and I had stomach surgery 3 days before, and I had to cancel.
yeah.
I
Jackson's
will
really cool.
regret that for the rest of my life because my husband, when the Osbournes came on TV, my
Yeah,
husband looked at me and he says, "Holly, that's your family."
yeah. Well, it was ours too, and I think a lot
Yeah,
of Americans can relate that was our family too. I mean, it was
yeah.
more or less to see
Same.
Ozzy on television throwing a ham at the neighbors
That was
was
my dad, and the F word. My
yeah,
dad is Irish. To us, that
yeah,
word is as a push of expressiveness. We don't
yeah.
look at it as a curse.
Yeah, and to see
Yeah.
their dogs pooping all over the floor and Ozzy shuffling around to try to clean up dog shit was everybody's life. It's
Yep.
every American's life. We pick up dog poop and we curse at our neighbors, right? And so, um, to
See, I
me, it
don't
was,
curse at my neighbors, I just hang pride flags out in front of my house.
oh, there you go. That'll work too. That'll work too. But meeting Jack was really down to earth as well, and Jack's a no bullshit kind of a person. I mean, Katrina's really that way as well. And but Jack was more to me. He was more like, if it's not going to happen, it's not happening. And if he really does experience something, it's a genuine expression. And so I can honestly say that Portals to Hell. I've worked with a few different TV shows, and Portals to Hell for sure was my favorite.
I don't watch paranormal, like, TV,
Neither do
because, like right, and because like, I remember when I was working with my former team and they would mention episodes of the show, I would look at them dumbfounded.
Mm-hmm.
And they would be like, "Oh, that's right. You've only seen 2 episodes." So they would have to sit me down and show me the
Mm-hmm.
episode in case
Yeah.
so that I would understand.
Yeah.
And I was just like, "Man," like, but I literally sat down and watched Portals to Hell. I think a lot of it was because I loved Katrina, because I also watched, the one that she was on with Nick,
Yeah. Lock up.
Paranormal Lockdown, and I only watched that after we went to the Hinsdale house.
Yeah.
And after we were at Hinsdale, I had to watch their
That
episode
show
because
was
I wanted
great.
to see.
That show was great with Nick and Katrina. That show
Yep.
was fantastic. I
And
was
it
so
upsets me that these shows that were so great didn't have big runs,
yeah. That's me too. And
because
I
the
just
other ones I get so, and I won't mention names, but there's a certain one I get so angry at that I
mm-hmm.
wanna break my TV every time I hear that person
Yeah.
sing it.
you know which
I
one it
have
is.
spent I have spent many a day on Twitter, now known as X,
Yeah.
calling this person a Cheeto.
Yeah. So yeah, that's I know who you're talking about, and I think in the paranormal world, he knows what he's known as.
Right.
I mean,
Well, and we called him, like, when he first came involved, I remember a friend of mine had been at, I think it was Dragon Con or one of those down south in Kentucky. And when she came back, she said, I seen these guys walking into the con. And she's like, since when did they let jocks in with the geeks?
yeah,
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 yeah, that's fine.
And that's something that I remember. But it's we've grown to that point
hmm
where we do have these jocks and beautiful people that want to hang with us geeks.
yeah, God, yeah.
It's
I mean,
about time.
it takes all types. It takes all
Yeah.
types. I
And
mean,
it's
we've had,
about time. Like, yeah, maybe not all of us will get a TV show, but like I'm
yeah.
happy with my little YouTube channel.
Oh yeah,
We're happy with what
we're
we
I'm
do.
we're happy with what we do, and
Yep,
I think I had that strive. I mean, in my 20s, I wanted to be on TV. I wanted a TV show, and I got it.
you're
I got the
lucky,
TV
man.
show.
I wish I had one, but I only
I,
want it
I
because I needed money.
well, the thing was, is it never sold. Right.
Yeah.
So I had a production contract and I had it for 3 years and we were trying to sell it off to Travel Channel and History Channel and Discovery and this place in a company in Canada. And I mean, it just didn't sell. I mean, it's
And
just like,
now it's all about a gimmick. Now you need a
yeah,
gimmick. It like they
yeah,
don't just want a team that has two guys and a girl or the and this is the thing that I try to explain to the younger people. They want something that's a gimmick.
yeah, they really do.
Because it's just like professional wrestling.
Yeah.
Sports entertainment is no different than para entertainment. And
Yeah. And
without a gimmick, you're not going to get anywhere.
I mean, you saw it though. I mean, if you were into the shows, you saw it because they were reaching for everything. They were like, "Oh, Ghosts of the South. Oh, hillbilly ghost hunting."
Oh, I
Uh,
remember I
you
seen
know, like,
one and I can't remember what the name of the show was, but I just remember they were in a prison and I guess this guy died because he got burnt and they literally lit a fire where this guy's body was burnt.
yeah,
And I don't know what show that was,
with that.
but
Yeah,
I just remember freaking out saying, "How disrespectful can you
yeah,
be? That's
yeah.
like going to Salem and trying to, like,
And
press a guy or
yeah, putting
hang
up
someone."
putting up a fake body hanging from something, or
Yeah, a
it's just
gallows. Like,
disrespectful. Yeah,
I know
yeah.
I'm not far from the prison in Jim Thorpe, the one that has the handprint on the wall.
Mhm.
I was very lucky to have gotten to investigate there, and they do have a gallows
Yeah,
inside that prison, but it is the gallows that was used to hang the Molly Maguires.
yeah,
So it's not like they just set up this gallows. It's actually historically accurate because it's from that time frame.
yeah.
So, man, and I'm looking at my time. We went like way over, but that's okay. I'm having fun.
Oh, I ain't worried about it. We're just sitting here talking, having a good time.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah,
I don't care. I have unlimited. Like I can post for as long as I want on YouTube. I've been a member of YouTube since it became YouTube.
yeah.
So,
Well, but
yeah.
and then yeah. So I mean, that's the thing is we just really we're really happy and comfortable with what we do. The TV, like my point of the whole TV show thing wasn't to sit there and brag.
No,
It's
but
to also,
it's who you are.
yeah, it's absolutely to show people that you can strive for what you want, and it doesn't always happen, and you have to be content with who you are and what you do in life. And to be honest with you, I'm content, and I think we both are content showing the normal folk that don't know about this stuff what this stuff really is.
And that's how I am. Like for me, I'm all about educating.
Yeah,
I did the investigative thing. I still do for the heck of it to have fun.
yeah,
But I noticed when I left the team that I was with, my focus really became on sharing about the occult and spirituality. And I
mhm,
really focus more on sharing how to work with clients at their level of spirituality, not ours.
yeah,
Because at the end of the day, it's about the client, not us. I can't go into a house with someone who's Jewish
yeah.
and expect a Catholic priest to help them.
Yeah, well, that's the
Yeah,
thing.
you gotta be very
House calls are completely different.
Right, and that's always been, that's that has always been my realm. Like, I love doing the historical stuff because I am a
Mhm.
history geek,
Yeah,
but I've always been very client-centered,
me too. Yeah,
and I wanna help people, and, like, even as a Native person, like, we all have our roles within our Native communities, and I'm a
mhm,
story keeper, I'm a storyteller, I'm not I'm not a warrior. I'm not a water protector. I'm not, a medicine person. Well, sometimes I can be,
Mhm.
but my main mission has always been telling stories and keeping the past alive.
Yep.
And so that's what I try to focus. That's why I love doing the podcast, because I love bringing people on from, like, we just did last week, we did a witches roundtable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that.
And
Yeah.
then we're doing like a continuing series where I'm trying to bring on all different types of witches, because I tell people, like, it's not a religion. We it's a path. A
Yeah.
lot of witches don't even use religion in their I don't.
Yeah.
I'm a minister, man. You
Yeah. Well, I
know?
mean, before Catholicism and Christianity and that whole thought and process came into play, that's what we were.
Right. And and that's what people like tend to forget. Like Abrahamic religions are very new to this
Yeah.
planet.
Yeah.
And that's why I tell people, like, my faith, as an indigenous person, I was alive
Yeah.
when the Indigenous Religious Act was passed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I remember, seeing the excitement in my family and the people I know
Hmm.
when they were finally allowed to practice without fear of being shot or being
Yeah.
taken to prison or
Yeah.
anything. So yeah, and people don't understand that, and that's why I think, as in our field, it's so important for me, at least, to share those,
Yeah.
and that's why I'm a writer.
Well,
You
yes,
know.
exactly. And that's what I was going to say. Speech and stories. I'm a storyteller.
Mhm.
You come and take our tour, and you get me to tell your story. I'm theatrical, and I'll dance around and tell you how the guy was dancing down the line, and he was doing this, and that's just me. I love telling a good story, but that's human nature.
Exactly. We're
It,
meant to tell stories.
we are, and even in these Native American tribes that we've been speaking on, there was always a person that told the stories.
Right, and that's been, like, my cousins are all water protectors,
Hmm.
and then my other cousin takes care of elders.
Yeah,
And they always said to me, "You're the story keeper of the family."
yeah,
Because
yeah.
they
That's what
said,
I feel.
You have a photographic memory, you remember all the stories, you
Yeah,
remember," and they said, "Even in what you've chosen to do," I had kids and gave up a career because I
yeah,
wanted to be at home with my kids, and even through all of that, I always shared stories,
yeah.
and
Well,
history.
and
And
I think
so
that kind of thing about gathering around the fire,
mhm,
sitting around the fire and hearing a creepy ghost story was always fun to me when I was a child. And
same
we're
thing with
talking
me.
4, 5, 6 years old, and I always wanted to be the person to tell the scary story. And so I'd make up scary stories right there on the spot. My mom was like, "I don't know how the hell you used to come up with this stuff." Well, it's just my imagination. I could go walk the dog tonight and encounter the goose across the street, and I can come back and tell you a 30-minute story about how I went for a walk and I experienced the goose.
Yeah, my husband said that's what I do. My husband says all the time, he says, like, "You can make the simplest thing into this
A story. Yeah.
elaborate extravaganza," is what he
Yes,
calls
that's the way I
it.
am.
Like he said, only you could, like, like, my first book that I wrote was just about my early experiences in the paranormal.
Yeah,
And he said, "But here you took all of these things and made it into, like, this big long book."
yeah,
And I said, "Well," and he said, "And you do it so quickly." And I said, "Well, no, 10 years is not quick."
yeah,
But he said, "But once you start it," like, right now, I've been writing the current book that I'm writing for over a year. But then
yeah,
I have another book that I'm writing at the same time for 2 years, but it's
yeah.
an herbiaries, and I'm only on
Mhm.
letter C. You know how
Yeah.
many herbs there are on this freaking planet?
Oh yeah.
And so, yeah, it's taken me forever, but I told him, "For me, I think it's important." Especially the one that I'm currently doing that talks about
Mhm.
that dark side of the paranormal that no one ever wants to
Mhm.
discuss,
Yeah.
the bad things that happen in the
Yeah.
community.
Yeah.
And, after everything I experienced, I said it was so important to me to share those stories. And they're not just mine.
Yeah.
These are stories that I've been collecting for 20 some years.
Mhm.
And finally, got angry enough at things happening that I wanted to get it out. I'm like, I'm going to lose friends, but it's okay.
Yeah,
If
you'll
they're really my friend.
And then if yeah, that's what I was gonna say. If they're really friends, and you will find, and you're gonna find new friends, right? So
I am shocked with the people who have come into my life just from doing this podcast
oh
and the
yeah,
people that I've become friends with in the field.
oh yeah,
I went from having like 4 or 500 people on Facebook to like over almost 4,000.
Yeah.
Just on my personal page, and I'm just like, where are all these people coming from? So they
Yeah,
made my personal account a business account.
well, you're doing your job. You're talking. You're
Yeah.
bringing conversation to people that might be curious about this, that might not know what it is, and then we're sitting here having a logical conversation and not sitting there going, "Everything's a ghost."
No, because it's not.
It's not always. There can be explanations for things, but let me tell you, there in a firsthand experience, there's
Yep.
things that do happen.
Exactly.
Yeah, my brain wants to be a skeptic.
I'm
My
the same
brain,
way. I used to wanna believe, 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 and then
yeah,
the further and further I got into this field, I became the biggest debunker. You know how many paranormal pages
yeah,
I get kicked off of
yes.
because I look and say, "Those are not orbs,
And
that's a
then you
bug."
might, yeah, and you might upset somebody from some other ghost team because you were like, "That's logical explanation," and then they're like, "Well,
Right,
no, that's something crazy," and you're like, "No, it's just logical explanation. It's the heat, the contraction of the metal from hot to cold."
right,
And
or you're
you're
in
like,
the
"Wait,
you're in a
what?"
dingy basement, it's dust.
Yeah. So I
And
mean, it's
I get
really.
kicked off all those pages when people are saying, "Look at the picture I took, look at the orbs," and I'm like,
Mhm.
"Holly,
Yeah,
shut
We
up." I
don't
keep
we
telling
don't get
myself, "Shut up,
orbs.
shut up,
yeah.
shut up."
I don't even entertain orbs anymore. I
Well,
mean,
yeah,
it
I
is
tell
what it is.
myself, "Shut up, shut up."
Yeah.
And then 2 minutes later,
Well, the two
everybody's
things, the two pictures that I always have people show me, and trust me, I've dealt with thousands and thousands of people coming to take our tour. It's the window pictures and it's the orb pictures. So whenever you shoot a picture into a window, people, let me tell you that our brain has something. It's
pareidolia.
pareidolia. It's what we used to call matrixing back in the day when this all first
Mhm.
started, and where we actually make a photo because our brain wants to make a picture and wants to make faces. That's the way that our brain works.
The
And then we
greatest
sit
thing
there.
is for that is to have dyslexia,
Yeah.
because people will be showing me pictures and telling me, like, "Can't you see it? Can't you see it?" And I'm like, "No." Like, they're like, "Look, look, look," and they'll even, like, point it out and draw it out, and I'm like,
Yeah.
No."
Or the third one is the picture that they took in the square or outside to where
They're moving.
there's a light,
Oh,
like
yeah.
there's a street light, and then there's a little green dot on the top of the hand of their corner of their picture. And I'm like, do you understand how that works? That's light. So if you actually take your phone and you were to stand in the same place and move your phone back and forth, that little blue, and he goes, "Yeah, it was moving."
I love it. Yeah, and
It's
see,
because
and
it's that
I'm that
street
one.
light,
My
you
former
know?
team, like, I remember, like, 2 of the guys that were on the team, they did a whole plethora of photographing different things to show how they look like orbs, and they even researched at the time, like,
That's actually really
the
cool.
lenses inside the
Yeah.
cameras
Yeah,
to
because they're
show.
convex lenses.
Right, and to show how the square orbs came about and
Yeah,
and, like, they spent a lot of time on this research. They were part
yeah,
of, like, the tech team.
yeah.
And, I remember listening to their lecture and looking at them throwing paprika in the air and taking pictures of it, throwing coffee in the air, flour, salt, sugar. And I'm like,
Mhm.
you people are freaking insane. People think I'm nuts when it comes to
But,
research. This is
but
nuts.
that's the research.
Right. That's
That's
the
the
research
research.
aspect
It's
that a lot of people don't get into.
yeah. I've dealt with that. I mean, you've probably seen as many pictures as I have, if not more, right?
People
And
stop showing them to me because I don't see anything.
it's actually a really easy way to get away with it too. You're like, I don't see shit. So
Well, and I literally like, well, no, I should not say that because the guy that runs the team that I mentor with, and I'm his researcher, he will literally send me pictures, and I feel so bad because he'll send me FLIR pictures and everything, and I'm
yeah,
sitting there thinking, I don't see anything.
yeah,
What do I say? Because I don't want to hurt his feelings.
yeah. Oh,
And
and
'cause
then
he's
doing
so excited about it. I'm like, "I don't know what he's talking about. What am I supposed to be
I don't
seeing?"
and I don't know how deep you've gotten into doing like home calls and stuff like that, but those are always the strangest and the most interesting.
I have done, hundreds
Yeah, right.
of
So,
ho 'cause before I got involved with my former team, I was heavily involved with a local team, and I still do house calls. Like,
mhm,
we did a house where they swore the guy had a koi pond that originally owned the place. Now, this house was pre-prohibition built, and it was a very wealthy man who built it. And down in the basement, there's literally a copper still. And they said it was for the koi pond to bring his fish in the winter. But there's literally a copper still and a round, like U-shaped bar. And there's 2 doors, and both doors have peepholes. And this was in a private residence. Well, this woman swore up and down she had a shadow person or a demon. And they had a team come in and tell her it was a demon. So we're walking down through the basement, and there's a decent sized hole in the foundation. And she looks at me and she said, "Oh, that's where they said the demon comes in." And I'm okay, whatever. So then she goes upstairs because as she's telling me that the previous owner, the guy who built the house, had a koi pond in this copper still, which I came from a family that moonshined. I know what a still looks like,
Yeah.
and literally said that was for the koi fish in the winter so they didn't freeze. And I'm like, okay, if that's what you want to believe.
Okay. Yeah, that
She
was for
went
making
back,
grandpa's liquor. That's what that was.
right, and so she went back upstairs. And the girl that was down there with me looked at me, and I'm standing by the hole. And she said, "You're going to stick your finger in that, aren't you?"
You
And I
damn
said,
straight.
I said, "You damn sure know that's what I'm going to do." Uh, so I stick my whole hand in, and
Yeah.
guess what I find? Water. It's an underground creek that's running under the house.
Oh, cool.
So then I theorized
Wait a
that it
second.
wasn't a shadow person, that it most likely definitely was not a demon, because I tried to explain to this woman that the lowest percentage of
That's
hauntings
where he
are
would have got. That's where
the
he would have got his water. He
right.
would have got his water from the underground stream to actually
Yep.
make the alcohol.
That's why there was a hole in the wall.
Yeah.
And I tried to explain all this, and then I looked at her and I said, "What you have that you're seeing that you think is a shadow person is a land entity that was probably here back in, since the creation of this world, that's traveling along the water." And
Yeah.
not only that, your house is literally directly across from the entrance to the hospital emergency room.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
We
Yeah.
used to have to go out there monthly and cleanse it because of all the crap coming over from there. And since the hospital closed, hardly any activity except for this shadow that they
And
see.
that's the thing is if you're going I mean, if you're going out there ghost hunting and you're telling everybody that you're going into their homes and trying to investigate their houses that you got demons, like they're far and few between.
Oh, we had that for so long in our area. Everything was demonic. And I'm
They're
like,
part of the problem.
I
Like
listening to like Lorraine lecture for years, I knew they're the rarest of all hauntings.
yeah,
Not to mention the team that I worked with, we would rule out those kind of cases for
yeah.
the church. And, I
Well,
have seen it. I have seen a demonic haunting. I've
well,
seen what that looks like.
and the thing is talking about the parabully that we have here in Savannah. I
Right.
went to 2 different investigations that I was called out to this guy's house, and he had some issues. He really did. He had some drug issues, and I sat down with him, and I was like, "Dude, listen." I go, we need to level the playing field right here." And he goes, "Okay." And I said, "I saw your 1-day chip sitting on the table outside." And I said, "You're talk. I'm a former addict."
Same.
And I said, "So, do you want to talk?" And he was like, "Yeah." I go, "Then spill it, dude. What's going on?" He's like, I'm addicted to methamphetamines." And I said, I understand that. I said, "I could see it. I can sense it. I know it because I was as well." I said, "So, um, let's let's talk. What's going on? Why are you doing it?" I mean, you come more of a psychologist, right? Can we
Yep.
agree on that? You become more of a parapsychologist.
And you become, yeah, a parapsychologist or counselor.
A
Counselor,
counselor.
yeah.
Yep.
Marriage
So,
counselor.
I sat down with him and I just said, "Listen, man," I go, and we started kind of banging off of each other. He's like, "Well, I found myself asleep down in down here one night." And I was like, "I've done it. I've slept in the park."
Yep.
Let's talk about, like what's causing what you think is in your house. And he's telling me what's going on. And he goes, he started crying and he says, I just want to thank you. He's like, "You're the first person that has come in here to talk to me that I feel is level headed." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And he goes, "Well, I've had other people here." And I said, "Well, who's been here?" And he's told me the name. And I was like, "Oh, no."
Yeah, that's
He
what I say.
goes, and he goes, yeah. And he goes, look at the text that he sent me. And I'm looking at these texts, and I shit you not, this is no lie, hand to God. He says, in this text, he tells this guy says, hey, I was just trying to find out some more information about the stuff that I've been seeing around the house. And this person answered back, you're effing crazy. You're a drug addict. You need to get help. There's nothing in your house. You're completely crazy. You're delusional. This person said this to this man.
And that's wrong. I mean, I know myself, I'm a recovering addict. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I actually stopped and went to rehab right around the same time I became an investigator.
Yeah.
And, you know, for me though, this was in the 90s. We didn't have meth, nothing like that. Mine was
Mm-hmm.
all LSD. So you want to
Mm-hmm.
talk about seeing shit?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
seen a lot of shit.
Yeah.
And, you know, they forget that these people, it doesn't mean that just because they're an addict, they're not experiencing a haunting.
You're a human.
You have to peel those layers away to see
Well, that's
what
what I'm
part is
saying
the addict.
is there's a way of doing it, right? So you
Yep.
got to peel it. You got to peel this person like an onion. Whether they're married, let's get that unpeeled. Are you an addict? Let's get that unpeeled. Are you on any type of medications that can be causing any of this? Let's peel that. Have you
Traumatic
done?
brain injuries.
Yeah. Have you had TBI?
Yep.
Let's peel that. Have you messed with anything in the past with the occult? Let's unpeel that. Let's
And
believe.
yeah,
Let's
and not, you know, and that's why I tell people it doesn't necessarily mean the occult, but have you messed with things without properly knowing how to deal with
knowing
it?
what it was, right? So we unpeel that. Then we
Yep.
unpeel your childhood. Let's unpeel that. Let's see where this might stem from, right? So I mean, the thing is there's people out there that are going into people's homes and telling them complete crap,
I
and
am so glad I am not the only one willing to call that crap out because
I
for the
just
longest time,
come
people told
on,
me I was just miserable. And I'm like, I am
no,
not miserable. When I go into a home with someone who is petrified because they were told they have a demon.
yes,
Yep.
we've
And
done it.
then I find out that this is a
We've done it.
land-based entity that is no harm to anybody.
Yes.
That pisses me off.
That pisses me off too. And how
And
dare
then
somebody walk into your home when you've already got problems? You might already have an addiction or an
right,
issue or PTSD. This gentleman might have came back from war.
right.
This gentleman lost his girlfriend in his own bed. Did that paranormal investigator get that deep? Did he get
Probably
his?
not, because so
Probably not.
many of them are in for the shits and giggles,
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's exactly.
that's what it is.
they haven't done the time and the research,
Yep.
and that's where I get angry, because I've done this for over 30 years. I am no expert.
Already closed.
Yeah, I am
Yeah.
no
So.
expert at all, and I tell people that. But yeah, I know from experience and seeing
Mm-hmm.
what true evil looks like.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I will never
Yeah.
forget that, and I never wanna see it again.
Me neither. There's two times in my investigation career that I've seen things that were probably uh, not of God.
Yeah, I always say
What do you want to
inhuman because
say? I
we
don't
really
know
don't know.
because
I say inhuman, but inhuman
yeah,
doesn't always mean bad either, because land-based entities are inhuman, but they're not harmful.
yeah,
But
and
I say pure evil. Pure
well,
evil.
and then the thing is too is come on, you have people. I've had it happen to me where we've done say speeches or what do I want to say, kind of
What?
like holding little seminars and things like this, right?
Lectures.
Lectures. Okay, I've done that in California. I've done it many places and many a times, and I've had people come in and they're like, "You're dealing with the devil. Everything you're dealing with is bad. It's all satanic." But why am I hearing a 10-year-old's voice in that staircase every night?
Exactly, and that's my theory. Like, I literally have been pretty much excommunicated from the Roman Catholic Church,
Mm-hmm.
because of my work in the parent. I used to work with a ministry in the church. Someone seen my Facebook and that I was doing this and turned me in, and they threw me out
Mm-hmm.
of my ministry that I felt was very important. It was helping people get over trauma.
Yeah.
And then I was involved with another local church, and my husband happened to take my kids on a weekend. I was out investigating, and I always tried to keep that separate.
Yeah.
So they had no idea, and my husband tells them, "Oh, she's gone ghost hunting." So when I came back, it was the lectures there about evil and the devil, and I'm like, you know what, forget it, goodbye.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm like, who are you to tell me you're following, a book that maybe is written by men?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's very difficult when you have that aspect telling you it's evil, it's evil, it's evil.
Yeah.
And it's of the devil, because
Well,
like I
I
look
mean,
at people and say, well, first of all, if you're true, like, because I'm a minister, if you're a true reader of that scripture, it never said anything about hell.
no.
It said Lucifer was loosed upon the earth.
Yep. I just saw this on YouTube the other day where somebody had taken all the words of Jesus.
Hmm.
Every word that Jesus spoke was put in line. And it was all the other BS was kind of pushed to the side. And it was just about the teachings of Jesus. And you really sit back and you go, we created all that other shit.
Yeah, pretty much.
Now we did all that. Like that's what.
And that's something that, like, in my ministerial training, it was something that we did. Like,
Yeah.
we were required to take all the crap out,
Yeah.
all the stories, like, especially all the this one begat this one, who begat this one, who begat
Yes.
this.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
it. And
Yep.
just look at the teachings, the
Yes.
true teaching. And I tell people all the time, if you want to be a spiritual person, there's one thing to remember, and that's love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Because
that's what, if you're a true follower of Christ, that is what he told you to
you
do.
can't
Love.
take anything else with you.
Yep. You
You can't
can't
take
take your
anything.
money.
I
You can't
can't take
take
this
your material
computer.
projects.
I can't take this hat. I can't take these glasses. I can't take these
As
teeth.
much as I want to, I want to take my wigs into the afterlife, but I know
Yeah,
that ain't
you
gonna
can't do
happen.
it. The
I
only
tell
thing
my
that we
children to bury me with them.
the Beatles said it best. All we need is love.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like, I have a flag. Like,
Mhm.
different times of the year, I hang out different flags. For the longest time, I had the Lakota peace flag hanging out.
Mhm.
And now I'm getting ready to put my other one, that it's like a field of flowers, and it says, imagine all the people living in peace.
Yeah,
And that's how I live my life. Like, yeah, I get pissy and angry at people.
of course.
Yeah.
And
Human.
I'm the type of person that'll hex you as quick as look at you when you do something to hurt people I love. But
Mhm.
at the same time, I love people
Mhm.
for who they are.
I
And
like people that
I
love
want to
me.
help them.
I think the way that I want to say this, I love people that love me back.
Yep. And that's why I tell people in the paranormal, I'm Switzerland.
Yeah.
I don't care what he's doing to he's doing to he's doing. All I know is what they do for me.
Yeah. If he's a good person and invited me to dinner and we went and had a good time and had good conversation, then that's all that matters. That's
Right. I
what
don't
it is.
care if you think they're the biggest dick on the face of the earth.
Mhm.
Obviously, if they were a dick to you, but they're kind to other people, there is a reason why
Mhm.
they were a dick.
They were. Oh, we've had
Because
it where people give me a 2-star review and be like, Micah was just an asshole.
I had to turn
Yeah.
off the comments on my one my business page for
Yeah.
my little tree path apothecary, simply because someone didn't like a comment I made on Facebook, so they started giving me 1-star reviews on my business.
Yep. We went
Yep.
through it too. They're called trolls.
Yep. And so, you know what I did? I put kibosh on that. I turned off reviews. I said,
Yeah.
people that know me know what I'm made of.
Yep.
Yep.
I don't need reviews to show that I'm a good person.
Yeah. I mean, we go through the same stuff. We when we switched over business, when we created our own business, we got trolled as well. And you can go on our reviews and you can see 50 5-star reviews, and then you can see the one troll at the bottom.
Oh,
And
my
it's like,
husband goes through that too. Like, my
yeah,
husband owns a
it's like you can see
small
the
motor shop, and he
yeah,
has all these 5-star reviews. And
yeah,
one guy
and
said
then
he doesn't know what he's talking about. He didn't
one
even fix my
troll
shit.
down at the bottom because you're a dick.
and, but then I go on there and I comment back, who are you even? We don't have a record of you in our business files.
Well, no, and either did I, because when
We hadn't even opened
we
yet.
hadn't even opened our business yet. We literally got a troll. We created the Google account, created it, and within an hour, we had a 1-star review from somebody that said that they took my tour and were displeased with it. And I says, "How can you even say that? My business
We
isn't
haven't
even
gotten
open
any.
yet.
Yeah. Oh my God.
My business isn't even open yet, ma'am. I'm
Turns
so
out it's just people who are jealous.
they're just people, jealous people." It's
Well, and
trolls.
that's what I always say that when it comes to, like, my writing and stuff. Like, I had a great group of people that I was, like, hanging with and running with, and we did a lot together. And then all of a sudden, I got this opportunity to mentor this team and research for them. And all of a sudden, like, I just noticed them treating me differently, like,
Mhm.
judging my lineage in the field and judging my, like, my bio that the guy had helped create for me. And I'm like, "But
Mhm.
I have done all of this.
Yeah.
You guys forget you're new in the field. I've
Mhm.
been doing this since I'm 19 years old,
Yeah.
and I'm old.
Yeah.
Actually, I was
And probably
18.
and I'll be honest with you, probably even before that, because if you grew up in a house that was
Yeah,
haunted, you were doing
exactly.
shit way before
But
that.
but actually being out there and, like, joining a
Mhm.
team, I was, like, 18.
Yeah.
And so, like, I'm 50, that's 32 years under my belt.
Mhm.
I'm like, I was a ghost hunter before it was cool.
Yeah.
Before it was flashy and
Yeah.
fashionable, and,
Yeah.
people looked at me really weird when they're like, "Oh, shoot, she goes ghost hunting."
Ghost hunting. There's that's the way I got it too. I was 16 years old, just got my license, and everybody's like, "You're out there hanging out in the Scranton house?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm hanging out in the Scranton house." And they're like, "What are you doing out there?" I'm ghost hunting.
Yeah,
Are
that's
you guys
me. Like,
weird?
what
You know, the
what what are
man
you
murdered his
doing
whole
going into
family out there.
abandoned buildings? Why are
Yeah,
you going into those abandoned buildings? I'm like,
yeah,
"I'm looking for ghosts."
yeah. I'm looking.
But I would go into abandoned buildings, but I would not go into the attic of my home.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. I would
Even
not.
in the house I'm in now, my husband is a psychic dream walker, which I never knew until we watched Insidious.
Yeah.
I made him watch Insidious with me, and that's when he told me he did that. He dream walked, and I'm like,
Mhm.
"Oh, you didn't think that that was important to tell me?" And then and then he said, "Well, I think our kids do it too." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He said, "'Cause I see them walking around the house too at night when everybody's asleep." And I'm like, "Oh, interesting. I have a fucking family full of dream walkers." And
Oh wow.
I literally said, "Well, what do you do at night when you're out doing this?" And he said, "Well, sometimes I just stand over you and watch you." I said, "You motherfucker." Because I get woken up and I feel like someone's staring at me.
That's funny.
So now when I get that feeling, the first thing I do is hit him
Yeah. Wake
to
up,
make
fool.
sure to make sure it's not him. I
Oh my
literally that's
goodness.
the first thing I do, but I mean, because I do get visitations from I built an ancestors altar in my bedroom, biggest mistake I ever made, because within the first couple of days, I had all these people showing up, and I don't know who they were. And I'm literally going back on my Facebook page and, "Okay, I got a guy named John who keeps whistling Dixie. He seems to be an older gentleman with a balding head and blue eyes. Who does he belong to?" And, like, people would be like, "Oh," and I'm like, "Yeah, you need to take him back."
Yeah, take him. You need to
Yeah,
apologize and take him back.
that altar got put down really, really quick. And the other
It
thing,
is.
I collect dolls.
Oh
Well,
no.
when I would go out to Connecticut to Lorraine Warren's events, I have the life-size Raggedy Ann and Andy dolls from when I was a little
Mhm.
girl. My
Yep.
kids would take that Raggedy Ann doll and hide it all over my house for me to find when I came back from Connecticut.
Like an elf on the shelf, but it was
Yeah,
Raggedy Ann on the shelf.
except it was Annabelle. You know? And that's what they would tell me, "Mom, it's like a game. Where's Annabelle now?"
That's awesome.
But and so my kids grew up with it. Like, I mean, I don't know if you guys have kids, but my kids were so unafraid of it that the one school, their elementary school wanted to call children and youth on me because my kids were not afraid of ghosts.
That's
Until the
the
one teacher
that's the
said, "You
age.
do know." Yeah, the teacher was like, "You do know what she does, right?"
Yeah,
And the vice principal was like, "No, what does she do?" And they're like, "She's a paranormal investigator." So, of course, her kids aren't gonna be afraid of ghosts. Like,
yeah,
my one daughter went in and gave a whole speech about fairies and how they didn't look like Tinkerbell.
yeah.
And so,
Well, yeah.
yes.
Well, I mean, I did the same thing, and I would think I was in third grade where I had went to this place. It was an old restaurant, and I asked about the ghost stories that were in the building. And I got back to class that day because I just went out for lunch and came back to school. And they wanted. I sat there for 2 hours and told them the ghost stories of this restaurant.
Yep,
I mean,
I
I've been
was the
doing this
same
stuff
way.
since.
When my kids were in 5th grade, I think 4th or 5th grade, they had this big weekend trip
Mhm.
where they would go. It was like a STEM camp. And I ended up, my youngest child, I ended up being a chaperone when they went, because they weren't allowed to go on field trips alone because they were a runner. So I had to go. And I remember after all the kids went to bed, the teachers came and got me to bring me down to where they all were staying to tell them ghost stories.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and y'all thought I was crazy and wanted to turn me into DCFS.
Now you want me to tell stories.
Yeah.
Right.
But I am going to have to cut us off, sadly.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
hey,
No.
when I'm getting ready to do season 2, I would love to have you guys come back on and talk about your conference, because it won't be until the fall when I start my second season.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
definitely, but I want to stay in touch because
Yeah.
I loved our chat. Like, you guys are my longest podcast to date. So yeah, but
Thank
because
you so much for giving us the time. We really do appreciate it.
and like I said, I love talking the paranormal. I could do it all night.
Yeah,
But
me
if
too.
you guys can just and also I'll have any links that you guys want me to post, just share them with me and I'll put them in my YouTube and my podcast description. So
Awesome.
if you just want to hang on, I'll be right back, okay?
Fantastic.
From our friends at Got Knockers, Strange Knocks Magazine. Strange Knocks Magazine is your ultimate companion for exploring the enigmatic corners of our world. Delve into the shadows with us as we uncover the mysteries surrounding cryptids like Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster, and examine the tantalizing possibility of extraterrestrial life visiting Earth. Our pages are filled with compelling true crime stories that defy conventional explanation, alongside mind-bending conspiracy theories that challenge the status quo. Whether you're a seasoned skeptic or a curious believer, Strange Knocks Magazine invites you to expand your horizons and entertain the unexplained. With captivating articles, expert interviews, and reader submissions, each issue promises to spark your imagination and thrill your sense of wonder. Join us in our quest to illuminate the unknown, one strange knock at a time. From our friends at Got Knockers, Strange Knocks Magazine, read the description for further information. Make sure and check out our merch store at Bonfire. We are a Bonfire verified creator. Link will be in the description.